Enter the mystery of Neville Goddard's secrets, where the invisible becomes visible and imagination creates your reality. Through ancient wisdom and timeless truths, this audiobook will show you how to live from the end and bring your dreams to life through the power of conscious creation. Neville Goddard's Secrets. Introduction. Within the silent depths of your being lies a force more powerful than the stars, a sacred fire that shapes all you call reality. This power is not found in the world around you, but flows from within you. It is your imagination, the divine craftsman that molds existence as a potter shapes clay. The ancients knew this truth well. Imagination is not a fleeting dream, but the hidden forge where worlds are made. When you enter that inner sanctuary and feel your desires as already fulfilled, you awaken the same force that set the cosmos into motion. Each night as you approach sleep, the veil between conscious and subconscious grows thin. In that quiet twilight, your mind becomes fertile ground for new creation. There, in the stillness between thought and dream, you may plant the seeds of transformation. It is not enough to think lightly of your wishes. You must become them, feel them, dwell in the sensation of their reality with such intensity that your soul accepts them as already done. This is the sacred art of conscious creation. To the subconscious, there is no difference between the imagined and the experienced. When you assume the state of the wish fulfilled, when you live not for, but from your desire, you command unseen forces to bring it forth. Your outer world bends to the shape of your inner assumption. And each night, as you surrender to sleep, you may carry with you visions of triumph, joy, and fulfillment, blessings not hoped for, but claimed. This is not idle philosophy. It is a living law, hidden in plain sight, passed down through whispers of mystics and sages. Let these teachings awaken the Creator within you and lead you to the life that already waits. But before we begin, please hit the like button and let me know where in the world you're watching from today. It's always fascinating seeing who's joining us from around the world. Act 1. Foundational Principles Through Varied Ancient Parables. Chapter 1. The Potter's Vision. In the ancient village of Heliopolis, where the sacred arts were passed down through generations, there lived a humble potter named Michael Rodriguez. While other artisans boasted of their skilled hands, Michael worked in contemplative silence, his workshop filled with vessels that seemed to radiate an otherworldly perfection. One sweltering afternoon, a wandering sage paused at Michael's door, drawn by the unusual beauty of his creations. The old man watched as Michael sat before his wheel, eyes closed in meditation, before touching the clay. "You shape with your mind before your hands," the sage observed. Michael nodded, opening his eyes. "Years ago, I struggled until exhaustion, forcing the clay to obey. Then one night, I dreamed of a perfect vessel. The next morning, my hands moved, as if guided by the vision itself. Since then, I have learned to see each piece completed in my mind before touching the clay." The sage smiled. "You have discovered what the ancient ones knew, that all matter responds not to physical force, but to the images held in consciousness. Your clay is but a mirror of your mind's eye." Michael demonstrated, closing his eyes before a formless lump of clay. "In my vision, I see a vessel with spiral patterns that flow like water, frozen in time. When his hands touched the wheel, the clay seemed to move of its own accord, rising and flowing into exactly the form he had imagined. Notice, the sage instructed, how the physical follows the mental without resistance. This is the law of all creation. The world you experience is shaped not by external forces, but by the visions you hold within on. You who seek to master the art of creation, understand this truth. Your consciousness is the potter's wheel upon which reality takes shape. Every circumstance, every experience, every manifestation begins as an image in your mind before appearing in your world. Practice this ancient art as Michael did. Sit in silence before any task or desire. Close your eyes and see with perfect clarity what you wish to create. Feel its completion as if already accomplished. Hold this vision until it feels more real than your physical surroundings. Only then open your eyes and let your actions flow from this internal blueprint. Like the master potter, you will discover that the universe itself is but clay in the hands of your imagination. For what you can conceive with unwavering clarity, you can achieve with unconquerable certainty. And so Michael Rodriguez continued his work, his humble workshop becoming a sacred temple where consciousness shaped reality through the ancient art of divine imagination. Chapter 2, The Merchant's Golden Rule. Along the bustling silk routes of ancient Persia, where caravans wove between minarets and desert winds carried tales of distant lands, there lived a merchant named Jessica Martinez. While other traders relied on charts and ledgers, Jessica possessed an unusual method that brought her consistent fortune. Each evening before sleep, she would sit cross-legged in her tent, surrounded by samples of fine silk and exotic spices. But rather than counting inventory, she would close her eyes and paint vivid pictures in her mind, scenes of successful trades yet to come. I see myself exchanging these Damascus silks for twice their weight in Indian saffron, she would whisper into the candlelight. The buyers approach with eager eyes, gold coins clinking in their purses. Other merchants laughed at her practices until they noticed an uncanny pattern. The very scenes Jessica imagined during her evening rituals would unfold with mysterious precision in the marketplace days later. A wise desert mystic who observed this phenomenon finally approached her. You have stumbled upon the merchant's golden rule, he said, though not the one taught in common markets. The true exchange is not between goods and gold, but between imagination and reality. Jessica nodded. I've noticed that the clearer my mental picture of a successful trade, the more certainly it manifests. It's as if the universe itself becomes my trading partner, arranging circumstances to match my vision. Indeed, the mystic replied. The ancient ones knew that all transactions first occur in consciousness before appearing in the physical world. Your evening practice of imagining successful exchanges is actually the first half of every trade you make. You who seek to manifest abundance understand this truth. The marketplace of reality responds not to clever bargaining, but to the unwavering images you hold in mind. Every successful exchange is completed in consciousness before a single coin changes hands. Practice this sacred commerce as Jessica did. Before any endeavor, sit in quietude and see your desired outcome with perfect clarity. Feel the satisfaction of completion. Taste the sweetness of success. Hear the sounds of celebration. Hold this vision until it feels more real than your present circumstances. The universe itself will then conspire to bridge the gap between your inner and outer realities. Like the wise merchant, you will discover that imagination is the currency of creation. For what you can envision with perfect faith, you can exchange for physical reality with perfect certainty. And so Jessica Martinez continued her travels, her tent becoming a sacred chamber where invisible trades in consciousness manifested as visible abundance in the marketplace of life. Chapter 3: The Fisherman's Net. In the misty harbors of ancient Phoenicia, where waves whispered secrets of the deep, there lived a humble fisherman named Christopher Anderson. While other sailors consulted tide charts and weather signs, Christopher practiced a mysterious ritual that filled his nets when others returned empty-handed. Each dawn, before pushing his weathered boat from shore, he would sit cross-legged on the beach, eyes closed, as the first rays of sun painted the horizon. In his mind's eye, he would see his nets breaking the surface, heavy with silvery abundance. The fish swim first through the waters of imagination before entering our physical nets, he would often say, though few understood his meaning. One stormy season, when the waters turned treacherous and catches grew scarce, the other fishermen noticed something peculiar. While they struggled to find even enough fish to feed their families, Christopher's nets continued to yield generous harvests. A wandering sea mystic watching from the rocky cliffs finally revealed the truth. "Your fellow fishermen cast their nets only into physical waters," she observed. "But you, wise Christopher, first cast your net into the infinite sea of consciousness." Christopher nodded. "I discovered it by accident during a time of desperate need. The clearer I imagine the fish filling my nets before sailing, the more abundantly they appear. It's as if my morning visions attract the very schools of fish I seek." "You have discovered what the ancient mariners knew," the mystic replied. "The ocean of physical reality is but a reflection of the deeper waters of imagination. What you catch in consciousness must eventually manifest in form. You who seek to manifest abundance understand this truth. The seas of physical experience flow in patterns determined by your mental imagery. Every manifestation is first caught in the net of consciousness before appearing in the visible world. Practice this sacred fishing as Christopher did. Before taking action, sit in stillness and cast your net of imagination into the waters of infinite possibility. See with perfect clarity the abundance you seek to draw forth. Feel the weight of manifestation. Hear the sounds of success. Know the certainty of fulfillment. Hold this vision until it feels more real than your present circumstances. Like the wise fisherman, you will discover that imagination is the true net that gathers reality from the depths of possibility. For what you can envision with unwavering faith must eventually break the surface of physical manifestation. And so Christopher Anderson continued his dawn rituals, his quiet beach becoming a sacred place where visions cast into consciousness returned, laden with the abundance of life's infinite sea. Chapter 4: The Weaver's Thread. In the mountain valleys of ancient Kashmir, where patterns of light dance through morning mist, there lived a master weaver named Ashley Sullivan. While other artisans worked from predetermined designs, Ashley practiced a mysterious method that produced tapestries of such profound beauty that merchants whispered they contained magic within their threads. Each evening before touching her loom, Ashley would enter a state of deep contemplation, closing her eyes as her fingers traced invisible patterns in the air. "I must first weave with thought before I weave with thread," she would say to her apprentices who struggled to understand. One frigid winter morning, a Highland mystic noticed something extraordinary about Ashley's workshop. The intricate patterns emerging from her loom seemed to mysteriously appear in the events surrounding her life. A tapestry of intertwined birds would precede unexpected messages from distant lands. A woven scene of flowing waters would bring sudden rain to drought-stricken fields. "Your threads bridge two worlds," the mystic observed, watching Ashley's meditative weaving. "Each pattern you imagine becomes a template that reality itself seeks to fill." Ashley smiled, continuing her work. "I discovered it while weaving a scene of abundance during a time of great famine. The very next day, 3 merchant caravans arrived with overflowing grain carts. Since then, I've learned that life itself is a loom, responding to the patterns we first weave in imagination." "You have stumbled upon the sacred art of cosmic weaving," the mystic replied. "The ancients knew that existence itself is a great tapestry, shaped by the invisible threads of consciousness before manifesting in physical form. You who seek to master the art of manifestation understand this truth. The fabric of reality responds not to force, but to the patterns you first weave in your mind's eye. Every circumstance that appears in your life was first created on the loom of imagination." Practice this divine weaving as Ashley did. Sit in sacred silence and see with perfect clarity the pattern you wish to manifest. Feel the texture of your desired reality. Trace its design with your inner vision. Know its completion with unwavering faith. Hold this pattern until it feels more real than your present circumstances. Like the wise weaver, you will discover that imagination is the thread that binds potential to manifestation. For what you can pattern in consciousness must eventually appear in the tapestry of physical experience. And so Ashley Sullivan continued her craft, her humble workshop becoming a sacred space where thought-woven designs shaped not just cloth, but the very fabric of reality itself. Chapter 5: The Scribe's Scroll. In the sacred archives of ancient Alexandria, where papyrus whispered secrets across millennia, there worked a temple scribe named Matthew Garcia. Unlike other scribes who simply recorded daily events, Matthew discovered an extraordinary truth about the relationship between written word and manifest reality. Each night before sleep, Matthew would sit at his writing table beneath flickering oil lamps, crafting stories not of what had happened, but of what he wished to unfold. With careful strokes of his reed pen, he would describe scenes of joy, prosperity, and harmony within the temple walls. "The ink of intention flows first," he would murmur while writing, "before the story appears in the book of life." Other scribes noticed something peculiar about Matthew's scrolls. The events he wrote of in his evening practice would mysteriously manifest in the following days. A story about unexpected temple donations would precede a wealthy merchant's generous gift. Tales of healing would anticipate miraculous recoveries in the temple sanctuary. An elderly keeper of records observed this phenomenon and finally spoke. "You've discovered the ancient secret of cosmic authorship," she said. "The universe itself reads what consciousness writes in the scroll of imagination." Matthew nodded thoughtfully. I notice that the more vividly I compose these pre-dawn stories, the more precisely they appear in waking life. It's as if reality cannot help but follow the narrative already written in mind. The sacred scrolls speak of this, the keeper replied. Before any event manifests in the visible world, it must first be authored in the invisible realm of pure potential. Your nightly writing practice simply makes this truth more apparent. You who seek to shape the story of your life, understand this wisdom. Reality follows the scripts you write in consciousness. Every circumstance that appears in your world was first composed in the sacred scroll of imagination. Practice this divine authorship as Matthew did. Before sleep, sit in contemplative silence with your inner scroll unfurled. Write with perfect clarity the story you wish to live. Feel the emotions of your characters. See the vivid scenes you desire. Know the certainty of your tale's completion. Hold this narrative until it feels more real than your current chapter. Like the wise scribe, you will discover that imagination is the pen that writes reality's story. For what you compose in consciousness must eventually appear in the book of physical experience. And so Matthew Garcia continued his evening practice, his simple writing table becoming a sacred desk where thought-written stories shape not just records, but the very chronicle of reality itself. Chapter 6, The Shepherd's Star. In the windswept highlands of ancient Anatolia, where wolves prowled misty valleys and stars whispered celestial secrets, there lived a young shepherd named Amanda Torres. While other herders relied on dogs and weapons alone, Amanda practiced a mysterious form of protection that kept her flock safe, even in the most treacherous territories. Each dawn, before leading her sheep to pasture, she would stand atop the highest hill, arms raised to the fading morning star. In her mind's eye, she would weave a dome of golden light that enveloped her entire flock, seeing it so vividly that the very air seemed to shimmer around them. The wolves must first encounter our shield in the realm of spirit, she would explain to puzzled fellow shepherds, before they ever reach our physical world. During one particularly harsh winter, when predators grew bold and other flocks suffered heavy losses, the village elders noticed something remarkable. While other shepherds found only blood-stained snow and scattered wool, Amanda's sheep remained untouched, as if protected by an invisible boundary. A wandering mountain sage, observing from distant crags, finally revealed the truth. "The others build only walls of stone," he said, "but you, wise Amanda, first construct barriers in the infinite realm of mind." Amanda smiled, watching her peaceful flock. "I learned it during a desperate night when wolves surrounded us. In my terror, I imagined the brightest, strongest shield of light I could envision. The wolves suddenly stopped, confused, then turned away. Since then, I've understood that true protection must first be crafted in imagination." "You've discovered what ancient guardians knew." The sage nodded. "The shield of physical reality is merely a shadow of the protective dome first raised in consciousness. You who seek to create safety and protection, understand this truth. The barriers of physical experience are shaped by the boundaries you first establish in mind. Every shield manifests first in imagination, before appearing in visible form. Practice this sacred protection as Amanda did. Before facing any challenge, stand in quiet power and build your shield of light within consciousness. See with perfect clarity the protective energy surrounding all you wish to guard. Feel its impenetrable strength. Know its absolute effectiveness. Trust its divine power. Hold this vision until it feels more real than any threat. Like the wise shepherd, you will discover that imagination is the true shield that guards against all harm, for what you can envision with unwavering faith must manifest in the realm of physical protection. And so Amanda Torres continued her dawn rituals, her hilltop becoming a sacred space where thought-woven shields created impenetrable protection in life's challenging valleys. Chapter 7: The Baker's Bread. In the bustling market district of ancient Damascus, where spice-laden winds carried whispers of desert mysteries, there worked a humble baker named Joshua Walker. While other bakers anxiously watched their grain supplies dwindle between caravans, Joshua practiced a secret ritual that kept his ovens miraculously full, even in times of scarcity. Each evening after banking his fires, Joshua would sit before his cooling ovens and enter a peculiar trance. With eyes closed and flour-dusted hands resting on his knees, he would imagine his storage rooms overflowing with the finest wheat, his shelves laden with fresh-baked loaves, and an endless stream of merchants bringing abundant grain. The bread of tomorrow must first rise in the mind, he would say to those who questioned his serene demeanor during shortages. The yeast of imagination creates the loaves of reality. Other merchants noticed something extraordinary about Joshua's bakery. Even when drought withered distant fields and supply routes faltered, his baskets remained mysteriously full. Caravans would unexpectedly appear at his door, their leaders claiming they felt strangely compelled to offer their grain there first. A wandering mystic drawn by the perpetual aroma of fresh bread observed this phenomenon. "You've discovered the ancient secret of abundance," she said, watching Joshua's evening ritual. "You need reality first in the invisible dough of pure potential." Joshua nodded, his eyes still closed in visualization. "I learned it during a devastating famine. In desperation, I began imagining prosperity so vividly that I could smell phantom bread. The very next dawn, 3 lost grain wagons appeared seeking shelter from a sandstorm. Since then, I've understood that abundance must first be baked in the ovens of mind. You who seek to manifest prosperity, understand this truth. The bread of physical abundance rises first in the oven of imagination. Every manifestation of plenty appears first as a thought seed before sprouting into visible form. Practice this sacred baking as Joshua did. Sit in quiet contemplation and fill your mind's storehouse with perfect visions of abundance. See with absolute clarity the prosperity you wish to manifest. Feel its tangible presence. Know its inevitable arrival. Trust in the infinite supply. Hold this vision until it feels more real than any current lack. Like the wise baker, you will discover that imagination is the true yeast that raises reality's bread. For what you can envision with perfect faith must eventually manifest in the physical world. And so Joshua Walker continued his evening practice, his simple bakery becoming a sacred space where thought-risen loaves shaped not just daily bread, but the very substance of abundance itself. Chapter 8: The Musician's Song. In the lamplit halls of ancient Byzantium, where marble columns echoed with ethereal melodies, there lived a wandering musician named Stephanie Phillips. Unlike other performers who relied solely on practiced fingers and memorized songs, Stephanie had discovered a mystical secret that drew crowds and opportunities as if by divine enchantment. Before each journey to a new city, she would sit alone in the pre-dawn darkness with her silent lyre. There, she would close her eyes and imagine in perfect detail the performance she wished to create, not just the music, but the faces of enraptured listeners, the coins clinking in her bowl, the invitations to play in noble houses. The strings of possibility must first be plucked in the concert hall of mind, she would whisper while visualizing. The audience of reality follows the melody of imagination. Other musicians noticed something remarkable about Stephanie's performances. She would arrive unknown in a city, yet somehow the exact people who could further her art would invariably be present. Wealthy patrons would appear as if guided by an invisible hand, and opportunities would unfold like verses in a perfectly composed song. A temple priestess, moved by one such performance, later revealed the truth. "You're conducting more than music," she said. "You're orchestrating reality itself through the harmony of your inner vision." Stephanie nodded, running her fingers along her lyre's strings. "I discovered it during a time when no one would listen to my music. In desperation, I began imagining successful performances with such intensity that I could hear phantom applause. The next evening, a governor's procession stopped specifically to hear me play. Since then, I've understood that every performance must first resound in the amphitheater of thought. You who seek to manifest your heart's desires understand this wisdom. The music of physical experience follows the score first composed in imagination. Every achievement must first be rehearsed in the concert hall of mind. Practice this sacred performance as Stephanie did. Sit in contemplative silence and compose the symphony of your desired reality. Hear with perfect clarity the success you wish to create. Feel the emotions of achievement. See the detailed scene of your triumph. Know the certainty of your vision's manifestation. Hold this performance in mind until it feels more real than your current circumstances. Like the wise musician, you will discover that imagination is the true instrument that plays reality's song. For what you can envision with perfect harmony must eventually manifest in the physical world. And so Stephanie Phillips continued her dawn rituals, her quiet corner becoming a sacred stage where thought-woven melodies shape not just music, but the very composition of destiny itself. Chapter 9, The Gardener's Seed. In the hanging gardens of ancient Persepolis, where flowering vines whispered secrets of creation to those who knew how to listen, there worked a temple gardener named Daniel Lewis. While other gardeners focused solely on soil and water, Daniel had discovered that seeds responded to something far more subtle, the images planted alongside them in the fertile soil of consciousness. Each evening before moonrise, Daniel would walk the terraced gardens with a leather pouch of seeds pressed against his heart. Instead of immediately planting them, he would first sit in lotus position, holding each seed in his palm while projecting vivid mental images of its fully realized potential. Towering trees, abundant fruits, healing herbs of unprecedented potency. "The seed's physical shell is but a mirror," he would say to puzzled apprentices, "reflecting what we first plant in the soil of imagination." Other gardeners began noticing strange phenomena in Daniel's section of the gardens. Plants grew in perfect symmetry, bloomed out of season, and possessed healing properties far beyond their natural qualities. Even in drought, his plants thrived as if nourished by an invisible source. A wandering magi, drawn by tales of these botanical marvels, observed Daniel's evening ritual. "You've rediscovered the original language of creation," he said, watching Daniel commune with his seeds. "The ancients knew that consciousness is the first fertile soil." Daniel smiled, cradling a lotus seed in his meditation. "I learned it after losing an entire harvest to blight. In desperation, I began holding the remaining seeds while imagining them growing into plants of extraordinary vitality. When planted, those few seeds produced the most remarkable garden anyone had seen. Since then, I've understood that every plant must first grow in the garden of mind." You who seek to nurture new realities into being understand this truth. The harvest of physical experience grows first from seeds planted in imagination. Every manifestation must first be germinated in the soil of consciousness. Practice this sacred gardening as Daniel did. Hold your desires like precious seeds in the palm of your awareness. See with perfect clarity their full flowering into reality. Feel the vitality of their growth. Know the certainty of their manifestation. Trust in the divine soil of consciousness. Nurture these thought seeds until they feel more real than current circumstances. Like the wise gardener, you will discover that imagination is the true soil that grows reality's garden. For what you can envision with perfect faith must eventually break through into physical form. And so Daniel Lewis continued his evening rituals, his terrace becoming a sacred space where thought seeds bloomed not just into plants, but into the very essence of creation itself. Chapter 10, The Stonecutter's Foundation. In the quarries of ancient Thebes, where limestone cliffs held whispers of Pharaoh's dreams, there worked a master stonecutter named Sarah Bennett. While other artisans relied on measuring tools and marked guidelines, Sarah had discovered that perfect foundations emerged not from physical instruments, but from the architect's eye within. Each dawn, before touching chisel to stone, Sarah would sit in stillness before the massive blocks, her calloused hands resting quietly in her lap. With eyes half closed, she would build entire temples in her mind, seeing every angle, every joint, every foundation stone fitted with impossible precision. The temple must rise in thought before stone, she would tell her apprentices, who marveled at how her cuts always revealed the perfect shape within. The chisel only follows what the inner eye has already built. Other stonecutters noticed something extraordinary about Sarah's work. Blocks she carved would fit together as if grown that way from the earth itself. Engineers would gasp at foundations that aligned to the width of a hair, yet she rarely used their measuring tools. A blind temple sage running his fingers along one of her perfectly fitted seams nodded knowingly. "You see with the ancient vision," he said. "The eyes that built the pyramids weren't these outer ones at all." Sarah smiled, her hands ghosting over an uncut block. "I discovered it after ruining a pharaoh's cornerstone. In desperation, I began imagining the perfect cut so intensely that my hands could feel it before the chisel struck. When I finally cut, the stone split along exactly that line. Since then, I've understood that every foundation must first be laid in the quarry of mind. You who seek to build new realities understand this truth. The structures of physical experience must first be carved in imagination. Every manifestation requires a foundation cut by the architect within. Practice this sacred stone cutting as Sarah did. Sit before the raw stone of your current circumstances. See with perfect clarity the completed temple of your desires. Feel its solid presence. Know its inevitable emergence. Trust in the perfection of your inner vision. Hold this blueprint until it feels more real than the uncut block before you. Like the wise stonecutter, you will discover that imagination is the true chisel that shapes reality's foundation. For what you can envision with perfect precision must eventually emerge in physical form. And so Sarah Bennett continued her dawn meditations, her quarry becoming a sacred space where thought-carved stones shape not just temples, but the very foundations of creation itself. Act 2. Intermediate Teachings Through Different Ancient Stories. Chapter 11. The Mapmaker's Territory. In the candlelit halls of ancient Alexandria's great library, where scrolls held the secrets of distant lands, there worked a remarkable cartographer named Nicole Campbell. Unlike other mapmakers who drew only what traders described, Nicole had discovered that the territories she imagined while crafting her maps had an uncanny way of being discovered by travelers. Each night at the third watch, when only sacred cats prowled the library corridors, she would unroll blank parchment and enter a state of divine contemplation. There, with eyes closed and charcoal untouched, she would journey through unexplored realms within her mind, seeing hidden oases, mountain passes, and flourishing valleys with crystal clarity. "The map in mind draws itself in the world," she would whisper, while holding these visions. "What the inner eye surveys, the outer world reveals." Other cartographers began noticing something extraordinary about Nicole's maps. Merchants would return from distant journeys describing landscapes exactly as she had drawn them, even in regions no explorer had previously documented. Hidden harbors and secret valleys appeared precisely where her charcoal had marked them months before. A mysterious traveler, comparing her map to his actual journey, nodded with understanding. "You're not recording territories," he said. "You're creating them through the ancient art of mental surveying." Nicole smiled, her fingers tracing an unmapped coastline. "I discovered it after drawing an imagined safe passage through a notorious desert. Weeks later, a caravan reported finding that exact route, complete with the wells and landmarks I'd envisioned. Since then, I've understood that every discovery must first be charted in the atlas of imagination. You who seek to navigate to new realities, understand this wisdom. The territories of physical experience must first be mapped in consciousness. Every manifestation requires a chart drawn by the inner explorer. Practice this sacred cartography as Nicole did. Unroll the parchment of your awareness and survey the landscape of your desired reality. Map every detail with perfect clarity. The landmarks of your success, the rivers of abundance, the mountains of achievement. Draw these mental territories until they feel more real than your current location. Like the wise mapmaker, you will discover that imagination is the true compass that charts reality's new frontiers. For what you can survey with perfect precision in consciousness must eventually appear on the map of physical experience, and so Nicole Campbell continued her nighttime charting, her desk becoming a sacred space where thought-drawn maps shaped not just territories, but the very geography of creation itself. Chapter 12. The Healer's Touch. In the misty mountains of ancient Tibet, where healing herbs grew in the shadow of sacred peaks, there practiced a temple healer named Robert Chen. While other healers focused on herbs and acupuncture needles alone, Robert had discovered that true healing began not with the hands but in the subtle realms of visualization. Each morning before treating his first patient, Robert would sit in meditation beneath a gnarled cypress tree, surrounded by jars of carefully prepared medicines. But before administering any remedy, he would first hold his hands over a bowl of pure spring water, projecting vivid images of perfect health and vitality into its crystalline surface. The body follows the path that mind illuminates, he would tell skeptical students who questioned this practice. We must first see health before hands can guide it into being. Other healers began noticing remarkable recoveries among Robert's patients. Conditions deemed incurable would mysteriously improve, wounds would heal with supernatural speed, and chronic ailments would vanish as if by divine intervention. A wandering sage observing Robert's morning ritual nodded with recognition. "You've remembered the first medicine," he said. "The ancients knew that every cure begins in the healer's imagination." Robert smiled, his hands hovering over the energized water. "I discovered it after failing to heal a dying child, using traditional methods alone. In desperation, I began visualizing her restored to perfect health with such intensity that I could feel the vitality flowing through my hands. Within days, she made a miraculous recovery. Since then, I've understood that every healing must first manifest in the pharmacy of mind. You who seek to restore wholeness to any situation, understand this truth. The medicine of physical transformation must first be distilled in imagination. Every manifestation requires healing energy channeled through focused visualization. Practice this sacred healing as Robert did. Hold your intended outcome in the chalice of consciousness. See with perfect clarity the complete restoration of health and harmony. Feel the vital force of transformation. Know its inevitable expression. Trust in the divine physician within. Maintain this healing vision until it feels more real than current conditions. Like the wise healer, you will discover that imagination is the true medicine that restores reality's perfect state. For what you can envision, with perfect wholeness, must eventually manifest in physical form. And so Robert Chen continued his morning rituals, his cypress grove, becoming a sacred space where thought medicine healed not just bodies, but the very essence of creation itself. Chapter 13, The Sailor's Compass. In the storm-tossed harbors of ancient Phoenicia, where traders braved treacherous waters between distant shores, there sailed a remarkable navigator named Elizabeth Murphy. While other sailors relied solely on stars and charts, Elizabeth had discovered that safe passage depended more on the weather she held in her mind than the winds that filled her sails. Each evening before sleep, while her ship rocked gently at anchor, Elizabeth would retreat to her small cabin and unfold her charts beneath a swaying oil lamp. But instead of plotting conventional routes, she would close her eyes and navigate the entire journey in her imagination, seeing calm seas and favorable winds with unwavering clarity. "The waters respond to the ocean in our thoughts," she would tell doubtful crew members when storm clouds threatened. "Every wave bows to the weather we hold within." Other captains began noticing something extraordinary about Elizabeth's voyages. Her ships would somehow find peaceful passages through notorious tempests, discover unknown currents that carried them swiftly to port, and emerge unscathed from waters that claimed less fortunate vessels. A blind harbor master, feeling the unusual calm that always surrounded her ship, nodded knowingly. "You've mastered the first compass," he said. "The one that points not north, but to the weather we imagine." Elizabeth smiled, her weathered hands tracing invisible currents above her charts. "I discovered it after nearly losing everything in a devastating storm. In desperation, I began imagining gentle seas with such intensity that I could feel the waters smoothing beneath our keel. Within hours, the tempest calmed along exactly that path. Since then, I've understood that every journey must first be navigated in the waters of mind. You who seek to chart new courses in life understand this wisdom. The currents of physical experience must first flow in imagination. Every manifestation requires navigation through the seas of consciousness. Practice this sacred sailing as Elizabeth did. Unfold the charts of your awareness and navigate your intended journey. See with perfect clarity the favorable conditions that carry you to your destination. Feel the gentle winds of progress. Know the inevitable arrival. Trust in the inner compass that guides you. Hold this course until it feels more real than present circumstances. Like the wise navigator, you will discover that imagination is the true compass that steers reality's waters. For what you can sail with perfect confidence in consciousness must eventually manifest on life's vast ocean. And so Elizabeth Murphy continued her evening voyages, her cabin becoming a sacred space where thought-charted courses shaped not just journeys, but the very currents of creation itself. Chapter 14, The Blacksmith's Forge. In the shadow of ancient Antioch's copper-rich mountains, where the ring of hammer on anvil echoed through torch-lit workshops, there worked a remarkable blacksmith named Brian Torres. While other craftsmen relied on physical strength alone, Brian had discovered that the metal responded more to the tools he shaped in his mind than to the force of his hammer. Each dawn, before lighting his forge, he would sit in the pre-morning stillness, holding rough iron in his calloused hands. There, with eyes closed and hammer still, he would craft each piece perfectly in his imagination, seeing every curve, every edge, every detail with unwavering clarity. "Metal has memory," he would tell apprentices who rushed to strike hot iron. "It remembers the shape we give it first in thought." Other smiths began noticing something extraordinary about Brian's creations. His plowshares would slice through earth as if enchanted. His sword blades would hold impossible edges, and his tools would work with supernatural effectiveness. Even the simplest nails he forged seemed to bind wood with unusual strength. A wandering metalworker, examining one of Brian's perfectly balanced axes, nodded with understanding. "You're not shaping metal," he said. "You're awakening forms that already exist in the dream of iron." Brian smiled, his hands hovering over a glowing bloom of steel. "I discovered it after failing to craft a ceremonial blade for the temple. In frustration, I spent an entire night imagining the perfect sword with such intensity that my hands tingled. The next day, my hammer seemed to move on its own, revealing exactly what I'd envisioned. Since then, I've understood that every creation must first be forged in the foundry of mind. You who seek to shape new realities understand this wisdom. The forms of physical manifestation must first be tempered in imagination. Every creation requires mental smithing before hammer meets steel. Practice this sacred metallurgy as Brian did. Hold your intended creation in the forge of consciousness. See with perfect clarity every detail of its final form. Feel its weight, Know its purpose. Trust in the divine artificer within. Maintain this vision until it feels more real than raw material. Like the wise blacksmith, you will discover that imagination is the true hammer that shapes reality's metal, for what you can forge with perfect precision in consciousness must eventually manifest in physical form. And so Brian Torres continued his dawn meditations, his workshop becoming a sacred space where thought-shaped metal transformed not just iron, but the very substance of creation itself. Chapter 15, The Teacher's Student. In the serene bamboo groves of ancient Chang'an, where wisdom whispered through leaves like morning mist, there taught a remarkable instructor named Heather Rodriguez. While other teachers focused solely on memorization and discipline, Heather had discovered that student success depended more on how she imagined their achievement than on the lessons themselves. Each evening after her pupils departed, Heather would kneel before her meditation scroll, light a single stick of sandalwood incense, and begin an unusual ritual. Instead of planning the next day's lectures, she would close her eyes and envision each student mastering their studies with perfect clarity, seeing their moments of breakthrough, their eyes lighting with understanding, their graceful execution of complex concepts. The student becomes what the teacher first sees, she would say to puzzled colleagues who questioned her methods. We must plant the seed of success in our own minds before it can flower in theirs. Other instructors began noticing extraordinary transformations among Heather's pupils. Students deemed too slow suddenly grasped advanced teachings. The unmotivated found hidden wells of discipline, and even the most challenging cases would somehow blossom under her guidance. The traveling sage, observing her evening practice, smiled knowingly. "You've discovered the secret scroll," he said, "the one written not with ink, but with the brush of expectation." Heather nodded, her hands tracing invisible characters in the air. "I found it after failing to reach a particularly struggling student. In desperation, I spent an entire night imagining his success with such intensity that I could feel his future achievements as if they were already real. Within weeks, he transformed exactly as I had envisioned. Since then, I've understood that every learning must first be mastered in the classroom of imagination. You who seek to nurture growth in any realm understand this truth. The harvest of physical achievement must first be planted in the soil of visualization. Every manifestation requires careful tending in the garden of mind. Practice this sacred teaching as Heather did. Hold your intended outcome in the temple of consciousness. See with perfect clarity the full flowering of potential. Feel the joy of achievement. Know its inevitable unfolding. Trust in the divine teacher within. Maintain this vision until it feels more real than present circumstances. Like the wise instructor, you will discover that imagination is the true teacher that guides reality's students. For what you can envision with perfect faith must eventually manifest in physical form. And so Heather Rodriguez continued her evening rituals, her bamboo grove, becoming a sacred space where thought taught lessons transformed not just students, but the very essence of learning itself. Chapter 16, The Hunter's Quarry. In the misty valleys of ancient Thrace, where shadow-dappled forests whispered secrets to those who knew how to listen, there lived a remarkable hunter named Jason Mitchell. While other trackers relied solely on physical signs and snares, Jason had discovered that his prey was drawn more by the hunt he painted in his mind than the trails he followed with his feet. Each dawn, before taking up his bow, Jason would sit beneath an ancient oak, close his eyes, and perform what villagers called his spirit hunt. There, in perfect stillness, he would envision his quarry with such vivid detail that he could almost feel their presence and seeing their movements, knowing their habits, understanding their very nature. The forest mirrors the hunt we hold in our hearts, he would tell skeptical apprentices who questioned his lengthy meditations. What we track in thought appears in flesh. Other hunters began noticing something peculiar about Jason's expeditions. He would somehow encounter exactly the game he had envisioned, find prey in locations he had seen during his morning ritual, and complete hunts with an ease that seemed almost supernatural. A wandering forest mystic watching Jason's pre-dawn practice touched the oak tree knowingly. "You found the first prey," she said, "the one caught not with arrows, but with the snares of imagination." Jason nodded, his fingers tracing invisible tracks in the morning dew. "I discovered it during a desperate winter when no game could be found. In hunger, I began imagining successful hunts with such intensity that I could feel the weight of captured prey on my shoulders. Within days, animals began appearing exactly as I had envisioned. Since then, I've understood that every quarry must first be caught in the hunting grounds of mind. You who seek to manifest desires understand this wisdom. The prey of physical achievement must first be tracked through the forests of imagination. Every manifestation requires stalking in the realm of thought. Practice this sacred hunting as Jason did. Sit in the stillness of your awareness and track your intended outcome. See with perfect clarity the successful completion of your quest. Feel the satisfaction of achievement. Know its inevitable manifestation. Trust in the divine hunter within. Maintain this vision until it feels more real than present circumstances. Like the wise hunter, you will discover that imagination is the true bow that brings down reality's quarry, for what you can track with perfect certainty and consciousness must eventually manifest in physical form. And so Jason Mitchell continued his dawn meditations, his ancient oak becoming a sacred space where thought-tracked prey revealed not just game, but the very nature of creation itself. Chapter 17, The Painter's Canvas. In the sacred caves of ancient Cappadocia, where mineral pigments bled their secrets into stone walls, there worked a remarkable temple artist named Jennifer Adams. While other painters mixed their colors from earthly materials alone, Jennifer had discovered that the most vibrant hues first bloomed in the garden of her imagination. Each night before touching brush to paint, she would sit in total darkness, breathing in the cave's ancient air. There, in that void of physical sight, she would see explosions of color and forms so vivid they seemed to paint themselves across her closed eyelids. True colors exist first in the mind's eye, she would tell apprentices who rushed to mix their pigments. What we paint on walls are merely echoes of what we've already created in thought. Other artists began noticing something extraordinary about Jennifer's sacred murals. Her skies seemed to hold actual depth. Her flowers appeared to release real fragrance, and the eyes of her figures followed viewers with an unsettling awareness. Even her simplest geometric patterns seemed to pulse with hidden life. A blind temple elder running wizened fingers across one of her frescoes smiled in recognition. "You paint with inner light," he said. "Your brushes dip into the wells of divine imagination." Jennifer nodded, her hands hovering over unmixed pigments. "I discovered it while struggling to paint the temple's central mandala. In frustration, I spent an entire night seeing the designs so clearly in my mind that my fingers tingled with color. The next day, the paints seemed to blend themselves, revealing exactly what I'd envisioned. Since then, I've understood that every masterpiece must first be completed on the canvas of consciousness. You who seek to create new realities understand this wisdom. The pigments of manifestation must first be mixed in imagination. Every creation requires mental painting before brush meets wall. Practice this sacred artistry as Jennifer did. Sit in darkness and paint your intended creation across the canvas of mind. See with perfect clarity every shade and stroke of its final form. Feel its texture, know its meaning, trust in the divine artist within. Maintain this vision until it feels more real than blank space. Like the wise painter, you will discover that imagination is the true brush that colors reality's surface. For what you can paint with perfect clarity and consciousness must eventually manifest in physical form, and so Jennifer Adams continued her nightly vigils, her cave becoming a sacred studio where thought-painted visions transformed not just walls, but the very palette of creation itself. Chapter 18, The Architect's Blueprint. In the sun-baked hills of ancient Petra, where rose-colored cliffs held secrets of sacred geometry, there worked a master builder named Timothy Sullivan. While other architects carved their plans into clay tablets, Timothy had discovered that the most perfect structures were first built in the invisible realm of pure thought. Each midnight, when the stars wheeled overhead like divine compasses, he would climb to his meditation platform atop the highest cliff. There, surrounded by nothing but wind and starlight, Timothy would close his eyes and begin to build. The true foundation stones are laid in silence, he would tell skeptical apprentices who questioned these midnight vigils. What we later carve in stone must first be constructed in the chambers of imagination. In his mind's eye, Timothy would walk through completed buildings with astonishing detail, feeling the coolness of shadowed corridors, hearing footsteps echo off perfectly curved walls, sensing the precise balance of weight and space. He could inhabit these thought structures so completely that when he finally opened his eyes, the physical world seemed like the dream. Other builders began noticing something remarkable about Timothy's creations. His arches seemed to defy gravity, his domes captured light in impossible ways, and his spiral staircases felt like ascending through music, made solid. Even the simplest storage rooms he designed held an inexplicable sense of harmony and purpose. A wandering mathematician, studying one of his completed temples, nodded in understanding. "You've found the architect's true tools," she said, "the ones that measure not in cubits, but in consciousness." Timothy smiled, his fingers tracing invisible geometries in the air. "I discovered it after a magnificent design crumbled during construction. That night, in despair, I rebuilt it in my mind with such precision that I could feel every stone finding its perfect place. When we began again, the physical structure assembled itself as if guided by an unseen hand. Since then, I've understood that every building must first rise in the quarries of imagination. You who seek to construct new realities understand this wisdom. The materials of manifestation must first be shaped in mind. Every creation requires mental building before stone touches stone. Practice this sacred architecture as Timothy did. Stand in the emptiness of pure potential and build your intended creation in thought. See with perfect clarity every angle and dimension of its completed form. Feel its solid presence. Know its inevitable manifestation. Trust in the divine architect within. Maintain this vision until it feels more real than empty space. Like the wise builder, you will discover that imagination is the true chisel that shapes reality's form. For what you can construct with perfect certainty in consciousness must eventually manifest in physical form. And so Timothy Sullivan continued his midnight vigils, his starlit platform becoming a sacred workspace where thought-built structures revealed not just buildings, but the very blueprints of creation itself. At Chapter 19, The Librarian's Wisdom. In the vast underground archives of ancient Memphis, where scrolls whispered their secrets in the flickering lamplight, there served a remarkable keeper of knowledge named Michelle Foster. While other librarians organized texts by common methods, Michelle had discovered that the true arrangement of wisdom followed patterns woven in thought. Each morning before opening the archive gates, she would sit among the countless scrolls and papyri, breathing in their ancient dust. In perfect stillness, she would envision seekers finding exactly the knowledge they sought, seeing their paths through the labyrinth of learning with supernatural clarity. The scrolls arrange themselves according to the needs we imagine, she would tell puzzled assistants who found texts mysteriously migrating between sections. What appears as chaos to the outer eye follows an order visible only to inner sight. Other archivists began noticing something extraordinary about Michelle's section of the library. Scholars would somehow stumble upon exactly the text they required, often in seemingly illogical locations. Ancient writings on similar themes would cluster together without being physically moved, and lost manuscripts would surface precisely when needed. A blind philosopher running his fingers across scroll titles written in different languages smiled knowingly. "You've learned to read the invisible catalog," he said. "The one written not in ink, but in the alphabet of pure intention." Michelle nodded, her hands hovering over a collection of prophecies. "I discovered it during a festival week when thousands sought wisdom simultaneously. Overwhelmed, I began intensely imagining each seeker finding their perfect text. Within days, the archives began organizing themselves, as if moved by unseen librarians. Since then, I've understood that knowledge arranges itself to match the patterns we hold in mind. You who seek to organize and manifest understand this wisdom. The arrangement of reality follows the filing system of imagination. Every manifestation requires perfect mental classification before physical order appears. Practice this sacred cataloging as Michelle did. Sit in the silence of your inner archive and envision the perfect arrangement of your desires. See with complete clarity how each element finds its ideal place. Feel the satisfaction of divine order. Know its inevitable manifestation. Trust in the cosmic librarian within. Maintain this vision until it feels more real than current disorder. Like the wise archivist, you will discover that imagination is the true system that catalogs reality's possibilities. For what you can organize with perfect certainty in consciousness must eventually manifest in physical form. And so Michelle Foster continued her morning meditations, her archive becoming a sacred space where thought-arranged wisdom revealed not just knowledge, but the very indexing of creation itself. Chapter 20, The Merchant's Caravan. In the shimmering heat of ancient desert routes, where silk roads wove invisible threads between distant kingdoms, there journeyed a remarkable caravan leader named Ryan Edwards. While other merchants relied on armed guards and traditional routes, Ryan had discovered that safe passages were first blazed in the trackless realms of mind. Each evening before sleep, while his caravan rested beneath star-scattered skies, Ryan would sit atop the highest dune overlooking their camp. There, surrounded by the whispers of desert winds, he would close his eyes and travel the next day's journey in thought. "The true map is drawn in starlight," he would tell skeptical traders who questioned his peculiar rituals. "What we later traverse with camels must first be crossed by consciousness." In his mind's eye, Ryan would see his caravan moving through the coming day with perfect clarity, sensing the firmness of hidden paths, knowing where sweet water lay beneath seemingly barren sands, feeling the precise moments to rest or press forward. He inhabited these thought journeys so completely that when dawn arrived, the physical travel felt like remembering rather than discovering. Other merchants began noticing something extraordinary about Ryan's caravans. His trains passed unharmed through bandit territories, found water in the deepest desert, and arrived at markets precisely when prices were highest. Even in the worst seasons, his goods traveled undamaged and his animals stayed healthy. A wandering mystic, sharing Ryan's evening fire, nodded in recognition. "You've learned to navigate the invisible roads," she said, "the ones that exist in the eternal, before they appear in time." Ryan smiled, his fingers tracing constellations overhead. "I discovered it after losing half my caravan to a sandstorm. That night, desperate for guidance, I traveled the entire route in my mind with such detail that I could taste the air of each hour. The next journey unfolded exactly as I'd envisioned. Since then, I've understood that every successful voyage must first be completed in imagination. You who seek to journey toward your desires understand this wisdom. The paths of manifestation must first be walked in mind. Every achievement requires mental traveling before feet touch sand. Practice this sacred wayfinding as Ryan did. Sit in the silence of possibility and travel your intended path in thought. See with perfect clarity every step and stage of your completed journey. Feel its successful conclusion. Know its inevitable unfolding. Trust in the divine navigator within. Maintain this vision until it feels more real than present circumstances. Like the wise caravan leader, you will discover that imagination is the true compass that guides reality's direction. For what you can journey with perfect certainty and consciousness must eventually manifest in physical form. And so Ryan Edwards continued his evening vigils, his dune-top perch becoming a sacred waypoint where thought-walked paths revealed not just safe passages, but the very roots of creation itself. Act 3. Advanced Concepts Through Diverse Ancient Wisdom Tales. Chapter 21, The Oracle's Vision. In the mist-shrouded peaks of ancient Delphi, where sacred vapors rose from earthen cracks to touch divine realms, there served a remarkable oracle named Amber Thompson. While other seers spoke all visions they received, Amber had discovered that true prophecy required distinguishing between mere dreams and purposeful glimpses of destiny. Each dawn, before the first pilgrims arrived seeking wisdom, she would descend into the temple's deepest chamber, where crystalline waters reflected nothing but truth. There, bathed in the blue light of underground pools, Amber would sift through the visions that danced behind her eyes. Dreams float like leaves on water, she would tell initiates who struggled to interpret their own visions. But true sight sinks like stones to touch the pool's bottom, solid and unchanging. In her years of service, Amber had learned to recognize the subtle difference between imagination's idle wanderings and the weighted certainty of genuine prophecy. Random dreams scattered like startled birds when examined closely, while authentic visions grew only clearer under scrutiny. A blind seer visiting from distant temples traced patterns in Amber's sacred pool and smiled. "You've learned to feel the texture of truth," she said. "How some visions carry the weight of destiny, while others are light as morning mist." Amber nodded, her fingers creating ripples that caught the dim light. "I discovered it after speaking a false prophecy that led many astray. In my shame, I learned to test each vision like a merchant testing coins, by their weight, their ring, their inner light. Since then, I've understood that true sight must be earned through discernment. You who seek to see beyond the veil understand this wisdom. Not all inner visions carry equal power. The eye of prophecy must be trained to distinguish between fancy's fragments and destiny's deep current. Practice this sacred discernment as Amber did. Sit beside your inner waters and watch the images that surface. Notice which visions dissolve when questioned and which grow stronger under examination. Feel their weight. Test their substance. Trust your divine discernment. Learn to recognize the signature of truth. Like the wise oracle, you will discover that imagination trained in discrimination becomes a lens for seeing reality's deeper patterns. For what you can distinguish with perfect clarity and consciousness reveals the true shape of things to come. And so Amber Thompson continued her dawn vigils, her crystal pool becoming a sacred mirror where tested visions revealed not just probable futures, but the very nature of prophetic sight itself. Chapter 22, The Astronomer's Stars. In the silent heights of an ancient Chaldean ziggurat, where heaven's tapestry stretched endless above earthen bricks, there served a remarkable astronomer named Kevin Martinez. While other star readers tracked celestial bodies to predict mundane events, Kevin had discovered that the true power lay not in observing the stars, but in imagining their perfect alignments. Each midnight, when sacred constellations reached their apex, he would climb to his observation platform with neither chart nor instrument. There, beneath the infinite dome of night, Kevin would close his eyes and see cosmic patterns that existed beyond physical sight. "The stars we track with tools show only what is," he would tell puzzled apprentices who questioned his unconventional methods. "But the stars we align in mind reveal what shall be." Kevin had learned to hold complete star maps within his imagination, rotating them with such precision that he could divine patterns invisible to mere observation. As he practiced this inner astronomy, he noticed something extraordinary. The configurations he visualized with perfect clarity would eventually manifest in the physical sky, often months after he had first seen them in mind. A wandering Persian sage sharing Kevin's night watch nodded in understanding. "You've learned to read tomorrow's stars," she said, "the ones that exist in eternity before they shine in time." Kevin smiled, his upturned face reflecting starlight. "I discovered it during a season when clouds obscured the sky for weeks. Forced to work from memory, I began seeing stellar alignments that hadn't yet occurred. When the clouds finally parted, The heavens had shifted to match my inner vision. Since then, I've understood that cosmic patterns follow the charts we draw in consciousness. You who seek to align with higher forces understand this wisdom. The constellations of manifestation must first be arranged in mind. Every earthly pattern follows a celestial template we ourselves design. Practice this sacred stargazing as Kevin did. Sit beneath your inner sky and arrange the stars of your desires. See with perfect clarity how each element aligns with divine timing. Feel the cosmic order. Know its inevitable reflection below. Trust in the celestial architect within. Maintain this vision until it feels more real than current circumstances. Like the wise astronomer, you will discover that imagination is the true telescope that reveals reality's hidden patterns. For what you can align with perfect certainty and consciousness must eventually manifest in physical form. And so Kevin Martinez continued his midnight vigils, his ziggurat platform becoming a sacred observatory where thought-crafted constellations revealed not just future events, but the very mechanics of creation itself. Chapter 23, The Alchemist's Formula. In the shadowed depths of an ancient Persian city, where twisted alleys led to hidden laboratories of transformation, there worked a remarkable alchemist named Amy Patterson. While other practitioners focused on changing base metals through physical means, Amy had discovered that true transmutation began in the crucible of consciousness. Each twilight before kindling her Athanor's sacred flame, she would sit before her workbench strewn with curious vessels and rare ingredients. There, amid the subtle perfume of exotic resins, Amy would close her eyes and perform the great work first in the laboratory of her mind. The philosopher's stone lies not in any mortal vessel. She would tell mystified apprentices who questioned her stillness. Its power flows first through the alembic of imagination. In her countless experiments, Amy had noticed something extraordinary. When she could hold the perfect vision of a transmutation in her mind, seeing with absolute clarity the final state of any material, the physical process would unfold with uncanny precision, as if matter itself responded to the blueprint in her consciousness. A mysterious Sufi mystic watching Amy's silent preparations traced symbols in the air between them. "You've learned to distill the quintessence," he said, "the pure thought that precedes all material change." Amy nodded, her fingers hovering above her instruments. "I discovered it after a year of failed experiments. One night, exhausted and desperate, I sat imagining the perfect transmutation with such intensity that I could taste the transformed elixir on my tongue. The next day, my hands seemed guided by an invisible wisdom, and the work succeeded perfectly. Since then, I've understood that all physical change must first be achieved in mind. You who seek to transform your circumstances understand this wisdom. The alchemy of manifestation requires first distilling your desires in consciousness. Every outer change follows an inner formula. Practice this sacred science as Amy did. Sit before your inner Athanor and visualize your desired transmutation. See with perfect clarity the final state you wish to achieve. Feel its reality. Know its inevitability. Trust in the divine alchemist within. Maintain this vision until it feels more substantial than present conditions. Like the wise alchemist, you will discover that imagination is the true philosopher's stone that enables transformation. For what you can transmute with perfect certainty and consciousness must eventually manifest in physical form. And so Amy Patterson continued her twilight preparations, her humble workbench becoming a sacred altar where thought-forged formulas revealed not just material mysteries, but the very essence of transformation itself. Chapter 24, The Dancer's Rhythm. In the sacred temple courts of ancient Angkor, where stone dancers frozen in eternal poses guarded holy mysteries, there served a remarkable temple dancer named Rachel Lewis. While other dancers focused on perfecting physical movements, Rachel had discovered that true grace flowed first from the dance performed in mind. Each dawn, before touching foot to sacred ground, she would sit in the morning mist beneath flowering frangipani trees. There, surrounded by stone goddesses caught mid-twirl, Rachel would close her eyes and perform her dances first in the theater of imagination. The body follows what the mind has already danced, she would tell perplexed students who struggled with complex sequences. Perfect practice in consciousness creates perfect movement in flesh. Through countless performances, Rachel had noticed something extraordinary. When she could hold a complete dance sequence in her mind, seeing every gesture, feeling every transition with crystalline clarity, her body would flow through the actual movements with supernatural grace as if guided by an invisible choreographer. A wandering temple elder, observing Rachel's silent preparation, smiled in recognition. "You've learned to dance with your soul first," he said. "The body merely echoes what spirit has already performed." Rachel nodded, her fingers tracing delicate mudras in the air. "I discovered it after injuring my ankle, before an important ceremony. Unable to practice physically, I spent days performing the sacred dances in my mind. When I finally returned to the temple court, my body remembered steps it had never physically practiced. Since then, I've understood that all movement must first be perfected in consciousness. You who seek to manifest with grace understand this wisdom. The dance of creation begins in the silent temple of imagination. Every outer expression follows an inner choreography. Practice this sacred art as Rachel did. Sit in your inner temple court and visualize your desired manifestation as a sacred dance. See with perfect clarity each gesture, feel each transition, know each movement's meaning. Let your consciousness flow through the complete sequence until it feels more real than physical limitation. Like the wise dancer, you will discover that imagination is the true choreographer of reality. For what you can perform with perfect grace and consciousness must eventually manifest in physical form. And so Rachel Lewis continued her dawn preparations, her quiet frangipani grove, becoming a sacred stage where thought-crafted dances revealed not just divine movements, but the very rhythm of creation itself. Chapter 25, The Vintner's Harvest. In the sun-blessed hills of ancient Provence, where gnarled vines traced sacred patterns across terraced slopes, there worked a remarkable vintner named Stephen Foster. While other winemakers focused on physical cultivation, Stephen had discovered that the finest wines began ripening first in the vineyard of imagination. Each morning before dawn, when dew still kissed the sleeping grapes, he would walk between his rows of vines without touching a single tendril. There, amid the purple-tinged mist, Stephen would close his eyes and taste the perfect vintage that existed only in his mind. The sweetest wine ferments first in consciousness, he would tell skeptical merchants who questioned his unconventional methods. The physical grape merely echoes what we've already harvested in thought. Through seasons of cultivation, Stephen had noticed something extraordinary. When he could hold the vision of perfect fruit in his mind, seeing the ideal size, color, and ripeness with absolute clarity, his vines would produce grapes that matched his mental template with uncanny precision. A mysterious Dionysian priestess sampling his latest vintage traced the rim of her clay cup thoughtfully. "You've learned to press the grapes of possibility," she said, "the ones that grow first in dreams before breaking Earth's surface." Stephen nodded, his weathered hands hovering above a cluster of young fruit. "I discovered it during a terrible drought when all seemed lost. In desperation, I spent nights imagining perfect grapes swelling with sweetness. When the harvest came, only my vines had produced fruit worth pressing. Since then, I've understood that abundance flows first from the winepress of imagination. You who seek to cultivate abundance understand this wisdom. The harvest of manifestation must first ripen in the vineyards of mind. Every physical fruit follows a template we plant in consciousness. Practice this sacred cultivation as Stephen did. Sit in your inner vineyard and visualize the perfect harvest of your desires. See with absolute clarity the ripened fruit of your intentions. Feel its sweetness. Know its abundance. Trust in the divine vintner within. Maintain this vision until it feels more real than current circumstances. Like the wise winemaker, you will discover that imagination is the true terroir that determines life's vintage. For what you can cultivate with perfect certainty and consciousness must eventually manifest in physical form. And so Stephen Foster continued his pre-dawn meditations, his ancient vineyard becoming a sacred laboratory where thought-ripened grapes revealed not just nature's mysteries, but the very essence of creation's sweetness itself. Before we get into the next chapter, you can download a free ebook version of this audiobook using the link in the pinned comment below this video. Chapter 26, The Jeweler's Gem. In the maze-like markets of ancient Damascus, where gem-cutters' alleys sparkled with the dust of 1,000 stones, there worked a remarkable jeweler named Megan Chen. While other artisans relied on measuring tools and traditional angles, Megan had discovered that perfect facets emerged first from the crystal palace of imagination. Each morning, before touching blade to stone, she would sit before her worn wooden workbench with an uncut gem cradled in her palm. There, as dawn light scattered rainbow fragments across her workshop walls, Megan would close her eyes and see the finished jewel sleeping within the rough crystal. "The stone already knows its perfect form," she would tell puzzled apprentices who questioned her motionless meditation. "Our task is not to impose our will, but to discover what beauty dreams within." Through countless cuttings, Megan had noticed something extraordinary. When she could hold the vision of a gem's ultimate form in her mind, seeing every facet, every angle with pristine clarity, her hands seemed guided by an invisible wisdom that revealed exactly that perfection hidden in the stone. A wandering Sufi mystic watching her work one day smiled knowingly. "You've learned to cut with the eye of the heart," he said. "The physical blade merely follows where inner vision leads." Megan nodded, her fingers hovering above an unopened geode. "I discovered it after ruining a precious ruby with forced cutting. That night, I dreamt of the stone's true form, and understood that every gem contains infinite possibilities. Our imagination simply chooses which perfection to reveal." You who seek to manifest beauty, understand this wisdom. The jewels of creation must first be cut in the workshop of consciousness. Every outer form follows an inner blueprint. Practice this sacred craft as Megan did. Sit in your inner treasury and visualize the perfect form of your desire. See with absolute clarity every facet of your intention. Feel its brilliance, know its value, trust in the divine jeweler within. Hold this vision until it feels more substantial than the rough stone of present circumstances. Like the wise gem cutter, you will discover that imagination is the true blade that reveals life's hidden perfection. For what you can shape with perfect certainty in consciousness must eventually manifest in physical form. And so Megan Chen continued her morning meditations, her humble workbench becoming a sacred altar where thought-cut gems revealed not just mineral mysteries, but the very essence of beauty itself. Chapter 27, The Storyteller's Tale. In the mist-shrouded hills of ancient Bhutan, where wandering bards carried tales between isolated monasteries, there lived a remarkable storyteller named Mark Walker. While other tale spinners merely recited legends passed down through generations, Mark had discovered an extraordinary secret. The stories he crafted in imagination had a mysterious way of weaving themselves into reality. Each evening, before sharing tales with eager villagers, he would sit beside his traveling fire and first tell the story to himself in perfect detail. There, as prayer flags snapped in the mountain winds, Mark would close his eyes and live complete adventures in his mind before speaking a single word. Every tale worth telling must first be lived in the heart, he would say to curious monks who noticed how his stories seemed to pulse with unusual vitality. The tongue merely speaks what the imagination has already experienced. Through countless tellings, Mark had noticed something remarkable. When he would craft a story of finding a rare flower on a treacherous cliff, within days he would encounter that very bloom on his travels. When he wove tales of generous strangers offering shelter from storms, such benefactors would appear as if summoned by his words. A mysterious hermit warming himself by Mark's fire one night nodded in understanding. "You've learned that stories are not mere entertainment," he said. "They are the templates upon which reality patterns itself." Mark stirred the coals thoughtfully. "I discovered it during a harsh winter when I was trapped in a remote valley. To keep hope alive, I told myself stories of spring's return, crafting every detail of melting snow and warming winds. Within days, an unexpected thaw opened the mountain passes. Since then, I've understood that what we imagine in detail becomes the tale we live. You who seek to manifest your desires understand this wisdom. The story of your life is first written in the scrolls of imagination. Every outer experience follows an inner narrative. Practice this sacred art as Mark did. Sit in your inner storytelling circle and craft the tale of your desired reality. See every scene, feel every moment, know every detail, as if remembering something that has already occurred. Tell yourself this story until it feels more real than your current circumstances. Like the wise storyteller, you will discover that imagination is the true author of reality. For what you can narrate with perfect clarity and consciousness must eventually manifest in physical form. And so Mark Walker continued his evening ritual, his humble campfire becoming a sacred stage where thought-crafted stories revealed not just entertainment, but the very power of consciousness to script reality itself. Chapter 28, The Perfumer's Essence. In the aromatic bazaars of ancient Damascus, where fragrant resins and precious oils whispered their secrets to discerning noses, there worked a remarkable perfumer named Kimberly Torres. While other essence crafters relied on traditional formulas, Kimberly had discovered that the most powerful fragrances were first distilled in the alembic of imagination. Each morning, before touching a single vial, she would sit among her bubbling copper stills and close her eyes. There, amid rising tendrils of frankincense smoke, Kimberly would first craft complete emotional journeys in her mind before blending a single drop. The true essence of any perfume is the feeling it evokes, she would tell puzzled merchants, examining her unusual methods. We must first distill the emotion before we can capture its aromatic echo. Through countless blendings, Kimberly had noticed something extraordinary. When she could hold the perfect vision of an emotional response in her mind, seeing someone experience absolute serenity or boundless joy with crystalline clarity, her hands seemed guided by invisible wisdom to create exactly the fragrance that would evoke that feeling. A wandering Sufi mystic sampling a mysterious essence she'd crafted raised his eyebrows in wonder. "You've learned to bottle consciousness itself," he said. "These are not mere perfumes, but emotions made manifest through scent." Kimberly nodded, watching oils separate in a glass vessel. "I discovered it after failing to recreate a legendary temple incense. That night in meditation, I stopped trying to copy the scent and instead focused on capturing the feeling of divine presence. When I opened my eyes, my hands knew exactly which resins to blend. You who seek to manifest desires understand this wisdom. The essences of creation must first be distilled in consciousness. Every outer experience follows an inner formula. Practice this sacred art as Kimberly did. Sit in your inner still room and imagine the perfect essence of your desire. Feel its complete effect. Know its transformative power. Trust in the divine perfumer within. Hold this emotional blueprint until it feels more real than your current state. Like the wise essence crafter, you will discover that imagination is the true alembic that distills life's precious moments. For what you can feel with perfect clarity and consciousness must eventually manifest in physical form. And so Kimberly Torres continued her morning meditations, her humble workshop becoming a sacred laboratory where thought-crafted essences revealed not just aromatic mysteries, but the very nature of reality's invisible architecture itself. Chapter 29, The Candlemaker's Light. In the sacred temple complex of ancient Heliopolis, where countless flames danced in shadowed corridors, there worked a remarkable candlemaker named Sean Adams. While other crafters focused solely on the quality of their wax and wicks, Sean had discovered that the true power of illumination began in the dark chambers of imagination. Before pouring a single candle, Sean would sit in complete darkness, breathing in the sweet scent of beeswax. There, as his eyes adjusted to the void, he would envision the spaces his candles would eventually illuminate, seeing with perfect clarity how their light would transform shadow into revelation. "A candle carries more than flame," he would tell bewildered temple initiates. "It bears the very intention of illumination itself. The physical light merely follows the path that consciousness has already brightened." Through countless pourings, Sean had noticed something extraordinary. Candles crafted while holding specific visions of their future purpose seemed to burn with unusual properties. Those imagined illuminating sacred texts would burn steadiest near Scripture. Those envisioned guiding night travelers would flare brightest at crossroads. A blind oracle running her fingers over his work one evening smiled knowingly. "You've learned to shape light itself," she said. "These are not mere candles, but crystallized intentions of illumination." Sean nodded, watching molten wax swirl in his copper pot. "I discovered it during a moonless night, when our temple's eternal flame began to fade. Rather than simply craft a replacement, I first sat in darkness and imagined its light penetrating the deepest shadows of human hearts. The candle I poured that night has burned for 7 years without diminishing. You who seek to manifest radiance understand this wisdom. The light of creation must first shine in the temple of consciousness. Every outer illumination follows an inner kindling. Practice this sacred craft as Sean did. Sit in your inner darkness and envision the perfect illumination of your desire. See its transformative radiance. Know its revealing power. Trust in the divine light within. Hold this vision until it glows more brightly than your current shadows. Like the wise candle maker, you will discover that imagination is the true flame that ignites life's illumination. For what you can light with perfect clarity and consciousness must eventually manifest in physical form. And so Sean Adams continued his daily practice, his humble workshop, becoming a sacred space where thought-crafted flames revealed not just physical radiance, but the very essence of divine illumination itself. Act 4, the inner trials, sacred tests, and initiations. Chapter 30, the Mirror Maker's Reflection. In the shimmering deserts of ancient Yemen, where craftsmen transformed raw metal into surfaces that captured both light and truth, there worked a remarkable mirror maker named Christina Mitchell. While other artisans focused solely on achieving perfect smoothness, Christina had discovered that the reflections her mirrors revealed were shaped by the truths she held in her mind while polishing. Each morning before touching her tools, she would sit before an unfinished mirror in her workshop. There, as dawn's first light crept across the sand, Christina would close her eyes and imagine the deeper realities her creation would reveal to those who gazed upon it. A mirror shows more than mere appearances, she would tell mystified merchants examining her unusual works. It reflects whatever truth the gazer is ready to witness. Our task is to create surfaces pure enough to serve as windows into the soul. Through countless hours of polishing, Christina had noticed something extraordinary when she held specific visions of revelation while working the metal. Seeing someone recognize their divine nature or glimpse their highest potential, the finished mirrors seemed to possess an uncanny ability to reveal exactly those truths to whoever looked into them. A wandering sage studying his reflection in one of her mirrors gasped in wonder. "You've learned to polish consciousness itself," he said. "These are not mere reflecting surfaces, but portals into higher understanding." Christina nodded, carefully burnishing a silver disc. "I discovered it after failing to create a mirror for the temple's inner sanctuary. That night in meditation, I stopped focusing on physical perfection and instead held a vision of absolute truth reflecting back at every viewer. When I returned to my work, the metal seemed to polish itself to impossible clarity. You who seek to manifest truth, Understand this wisdom. The reflections of reality must first be polished in consciousness. Every outer revelation follows an inner recognition. Practice this sacred art as Christina did. Sit before your inner mirror and envision the perfect reflection of your desired truth. See its transformative power. Know its revealing nature. Trust in the divine reflection within. Hold this vision until it shines more clearly than your current perceptions. Like the wise mirror maker, you will discover that imagination is the true surface that reflects life's deepest truths. For what you can see with perfect clarity and consciousness must eventually manifest in physical form. And so Christina Mitchell continued her morning ritual, her humble workshop becoming a sacred space where thought-crafted mirrors revealed not just physical appearances, but the very nature of truth's reflective essence itself. Chapter 31, The Hermit's Cave. High in the mist-shrouded peaks of ancient Tibet, where icy winds whispered eternal secrets to those who dared to listen, there dwelled a remarkable cave hermit named Jeremy Murphy. While other spiritual seekers filled their solitude with endless mantras and rigid practices, Jeremy had discovered that the true test of isolation was maintaining radiant visions while facing the void. In his simple cave, warmed only by a small fire that cast dancing shadows on rough walls, Jeremy would sit wrapped in a threadbare robe. As biting winds howled outside like hungry demons, he learned to cultivate gardens of light within his mind that no external darkness could diminish. "The cave shows you yourself," he would tell the rare pilgrim who braved the treacherous path to his dwelling. "In perfect solitude, every thought becomes a universe. Choose them with infinite care." Through countless days of isolation, Jeremy had noticed something extraordinary. When winter storms raged fiercest and his provisions ran lowest, maintaining luminous inner visions became not just survival but transcendence. The more challenging his external circumstances, the more crucial his internal radiance became. A snow leopard seeking shelter from a blizzard once padded into his cave. Instead of fear, Jeremy felt only peaceful communion. The great cat studied him with golden eyes and settled nearby, as if sensing the warmth of his inner light. "The leopard taught me that true solitude is not empty," Jeremy later told a wandering lama. "It is pregnant with all possibility. When I stopped fighting the silence and instead filled it with conscious light, my cave became a palace of infinite dimensions." You who seek to manifest in darkness understand this wisdom. The richest revelations bloom in the soil of solitude. Every outer circumstance bows before inner illumination. Practice this sacred art as Jeremy did. Sit in your inner cave and cultivate visions of pure light. Let external chaos rage while maintaining perfect inner peace. Trust that your consciousness creates reality even when no one witnesses it but you. Like the wise hermit, you will discover that imagination is most powerful when stripped of all distraction. For what you can maintain with perfect clarity and consciousness must eventually manifest in physical form. And so Jeremy Murphy continued his solitary vigil, his humble cave becoming a sacred space where thought-crafted realities revealed not just spiritual truths, but the very essence of consciousness creating itself through the power of sustained vision. Chapter 32, The Warrior's Battle. In the mist-shrouded mountains of ancient Korea, where bamboo forests whispered secrets of inner power, there trained a remarkable temple warrior named Brittany Rodriguez. While other fighters honed their physical weapons, Brittany had discovered that true victory was first carved in the jade chambers of imagination. Before each combat trial, she would kneel in the temple's warrior meditation hall, where ancient masks of fierce guardians lined the walls. There, as incense spiraled toward the heavens, Brittany would close her eyes and let her mind become the battlefield where triumph was already certain. "The fight is won or lost before the first strike," she would tell doubting initiates. "Physical combat merely confirms what consciousness has already determined. Your imagination is the blade that cuts through impossibility." Through countless trials, Brittany had noticed something extraordinary. When facing overwhelming odds, whether 10 opponents or seemingly insurmountable challenges, victory always followed the path she had already walked in her mind. Those battles she had won in imagination manifested that same victory in the physical realm. An aging master, watching her move through a crowd of attackers with impossible grace, nodded in understanding. "You've learned to defeat reality itself," he said. "These are not mere combat techniques, but the power to reshape what others call inevitable." Brittany smiled, helping a fallen opponent rise. "I discovered it during the trial of 9 dragons, when I faced 9 masters simultaneously. Instead of focusing on my fear, I spent the night before imagining every movement, every victory, every moment of triumph. The next day, my body simply followed the path my mind had already conquered. You who seek to manifest victory understand this wisdom. Every battle must first be won in the dojo of consciousness. Physical triumph follows mental mastery. Practice this sacred art as Brittany did. Sit in your inner temple and envision your perfect victory. See each detail of your triumph. Know its certainty. Trust in the divine warrior within. Hold this vision until it becomes more real than any doubt. Like the wise warrior, you will discover that imagination is the ultimate weapon that cuts through all resistance, for what you can conquer with perfect clarity and consciousness must eventually manifest in physical form. And so Brittany Rodriguez continued her daily practice, her humble training hall becoming a sacred space where thought-crafted victories revealed not just martial prowess, but the very essence of consciousness, creating its own undefeatable reality. Chapter 33, The Pilgrim's Path. In the sacred valleys of ancient Nepal, where prayer flags fluttered between heaven and earth, there walked a remarkable pilgrim named Brandon Chen. While other seekers focused on reaching distant shrines, Brandon had discovered that completing the journey in his imagination created a divine shield that manifested as physical protection on the treacherous mountain paths. Each evening, as he made camp beneath towering peaks that pierced the clouds, Brandon would sit cross-legged beside his small fire. There, as twilight painted the snow-capped mountains in ethereal hues, he would close his eyes and walk the next day's path in perfect safety within his mind. "The feet follow where consciousness has already traveled," he would tell fellow pilgrims they encountered at rest stops. "Every step I take has been blessed by imagination's prior passage. The body simply traces the safe route my mind has already discovered." Through countless mountain crossings, Brandon had noticed something extraordinary. On days when he had thoroughly imagined safe passage, seeing every loose stone, every narrow ledge, every sudden storm, his physical journey unfolded with remarkable protection, as if divine hands guided his steps. A young shepherd boy, watching Brandon navigate an impossibly narrow cliff edge during a fierce wind, called out in wonder. "The mountain bows to you," he exclaimed, It's as if you're walking on solid ground where others see only danger. Brandon smiled, helping the boy lead his goats to safer terrain. I learned this secret when faced with the chasm of whispers, where howling winds have claimed many lives. Instead of fearing the crossing, I spent an entire night imagining myself already on the other side, feeling the joy of safe passage. The next day, a mysterious calm held the winds at bay as I crossed. You who seek to walk life's precarious paths understand this wisdom. Every journey must first be completed in the chambers of imagination. Physical protection follows mental certainty. Practice this sacred art as Brandon did. Sit in stillness and envision your perfect passage. See yourself moving through challenges with divine protection. Know your safe arrival. Trust in the pathmaker within. Hold this vision until uncertainty dissolves into absolute faith. Like the wise pilgrim, you will discover that imagination is the bridge that carries you safely across every chasm. For what you can traverse with perfect clarity and consciousness must eventually manifest in physical form. And so Brandon Chen continued his sacred journey, each mountain pass becoming a testament to imagination's power to create divine protection in the physical world, one visualized step at a time. Chapter 34, The Fasting Monk's Vision. In the sun-bleached desert monasteries of ancient Egypt, where sacred wisdom was refined through physical discipline, there lived a remarkable fasting monk named Samantha Edwards. While other ascetics measured their spiritual progress by days without food, Samantha had discovered that hunger's true purpose was to sharpen the lens of imagination. In her sparse meditation cell, where flickering oil lamps cast gentle shadows on whitewashed walls, Samantha would sit wrapped in simple robes during her extended fasts. As physical hunger gnawed at her belly like dessert twins eroding stone, she learned that each pang could amplify her mind's creative power rather than diminish it. Fasting clears the inner eye, she would tell skeptical initiates. When the body cries for bread, consciousness feasts on pure light. The emptier the vessel, the more perfectly it channels divine visions. Through countless cycles of sacred fasting, Samantha had noticed something extraordinary. When physical hunger reached its peak, her ability to hold and manifest mental images grew mysteriously stronger. It was as if the very absence of food made room for something greater to fill her being. A temple elder, observing her radiant face on the 20th day of a fast, nodded knowingly. "You've learned to eat light itself," he said. "While others waste energy fighting their hunger, you've transformed it into fuel for imagination." Samantha smiled, her eyes bright despite her hollow cheeks. "I discovered this during the great fast of illumination, when all food was scarce. Instead of focusing on lack, I filled myself with visions of abundance. Soon, these visions became more nourishing than any physical food. You who seek to sharpen your manifestation power understand this wisdom. Physical emptiness creates space for spiritual fullness. The clarity of hunger reveals imagination's true strength. Practice this sacred art as Samantha did. Sit in deliberate emptiness and let your visions become your sustenance. Feel how physical lightness elevates mental power. Trust that temporary denial of the body can amplify the creative force of consciousness. Like the wise faster, you will discover that imagination grows strongest when stripped of physical excess. For what you can maintain with perfect clarity through hunger must eventually manifest with unstoppable force. And so, Samantha Edwards continued her sacred fasts, her humble cell becoming a temple where physical emptiness revealed the infinite fullness of consciousness, creating through purified imagination. Chapter 35, The Stormwalker's Calm. In the windswept mountains of ancient Tibet, where weather spirits dance between earth and sky, there lived a remarkable weather worker named Aaron Campbell. While other monks sought shelter from nature's fury, Aaron had discovered that storms bow before the calm certainty of imagination. In the highest temple courtyard, where prayer wheels spun in eternal motion, Aaron would stand barefoot as dark clouds gathered. There, as lightning illuminated the peaks like divine calligraphy, he would close his eyes and fill his mind with visions of perfect serenity. The weather outside mirrors the weather within, he would tell shivering novices who huddled in doorways. These storms are but ripples on the surface of a deeper calm. When you master the skies of consciousness, the physical heavens must follow. Through countless seasons, Aaron had noticed something extraordinary. When he maintained unwavering visions of stillness, even as hail pelted his shoulders and winds howled like hungry demons, the fiercest tempest would gradually yield, creating mysterious pockets of calm around him. An old mountain shepherd, watching Aaron walk through a blizzard, as if strolling through summer meadows, dropped his staff in wonder. "The storm parts for you like curtains," he exclaimed. "It's as if nature itself respects your presence." Aaron smiled, helping the shepherd gather his scattered flock. "I learned this truth during the great thunder moon, when lightning struck our temple 12 times in one night. Instead of seeking shelter, I spent hours imagining perfect stillness until the very air around me grew peaceful, while chaos raged beyond." You who seek to walk through life's storms understand this wisdom. Every tempest must first be calmed in the atmosphere of imagination. Physical peace follows mental serenity. Practice this sacred art as Aaron did. Sit beneath the sky and envision perfect calm surrounding you. See storms yielding to your inner peace. Know your protective sphere of tranquility. Trust in the weather worker within. Hold this vision until turbulence dissolves into serenity. Like the wise stormwalker, you will discover that imagination is the eye of every storm, the still point where chaos cannot enter. For what you can maintain with perfect clarity and consciousness must eventually manifest in physical form. And so Aaron Campbell continued his sacred practice, each tempest becoming an opportunity to demonstrate imagination's power to create islands of perfect calm in seas of chaos, one visualized moment of peace at a time. Chapter 36, The Night Watcher's Dawn. In the hidden temple valleys of ancient Kashmir, where sacred fires burned eternal against the darkness, there served a remarkable night guardian named Tiffany Torres. While other watchers fought to stay awake through the midnight hours, Tiffany had discovered that maintaining visions of radiant dawn could literally illuminate the darkest watch. In the temple's ancient watchtower, where countless guardians before her had kept vigil, Tiffany would ascend the worn stone steps as sunset painted the valley in lengthening shadows. There, as darkness draped its heavy mantle across the land, she would kindle not just the physical watchfires, but a far more powerful flame within her mind. Night is but a veil drawn across light's eternal presence, she would tell fellow guardians during shift changes. When you learn to hold perfect daybreak in your heart, darkness becomes as transparent as morning mist. Through countless vigils, Tiffany had noticed something extraordinary. On nights when she maintained unwavering visions of luminous dawn, seeing every detail of light's triumphant return while surrounded by darkness, a mysterious radiance would begin to emanate from her very being, as if her inner light was made manifest. A wandering mystic observing her tower during the moonless midnight hour called out in amazement. "Your post glows like a star," he exclaimed. "It's as if dawn visits your tower while night still claims the valley." Tiffany smiled, sharing her heated tea with the traveler. "I learned this secret during the long dark, when clouds shrouded our valley for 30 nights. Instead of cursing the darkness, I spent each watch imagining the perfect light of dawn until that very light began shining through me. You who seek to illuminate life's darkest hours understand this wisdom. Every dawn must first break in the chambers of imagination. Physical light follows mental illumination. Practice this sacred art as Tiffany did. Sit in darkness and envision perfect light filling your being. See radiance spreading from your heart outward. Know your inner dawn's power. Trust in the light-bearer within. Hold this vision until shadows dissolve into luminous certainty. Like the wise night watcher, you will discover that imagination is the eternal flame that no darkness can extinguish. For what you can maintain with perfect clarity and consciousness must eventually manifest in physical form. And so Tiffany Torres continued her sacred vigils, each night watch becoming a demonstration of imagination's power to create islands of light in seas of darkness, one visualized ray at a time. Chapter 37, The Silence Keeper's Word. In the mist-shrouded mountains of ancient Nepal, where sacred silence hung thick as morning dew, there lived a remarkable vow-bound monk named Tyler Martinez. While other monastics struggled with their vows of silence, Tyler had discovered that ceasing physical speech actually amplified the creative power of mental words. In the monastery's meditation garden, where even birds seemed to honor the sacred quiet, Tyler would tend to delicate orchids that grew in perfect harmony with his silent presence. Though his tongue remained still, he had learned to speak to the flowers through pure imagination, watching in wonder as they responded to his unvoiced communion. "The loudest voice," he would write in the sand for questioning novices, "is the one that needs no sound to be heard. True power lies not in breaking silence, but in mastering the voice within." Through years of devoted practice, Tyler had noticed something extraordinary. When he directed his unuttered words with perfect clarity, imagining them taking form like dewdrops crystallizing in morning light, physical reality would shift to align with his silent commands more powerfully than any spoken instruction could achieve. A visiting merchant observing Tyler silently direct younger monks in complex garden tasks without a single gesture dropped his trading pack in amazement. "They move as if hearing music," he exclaimed, breaking the sacred silence. "It's as if your thoughts dance in their minds." Tyler smiled, touching a finger to his lips to restore quiet while writing in the soil. "I learned this truth during the year of the sealed lips, when illness forced all monks to maintain strict silence to prevent its spread. Instead of feeling helpless, I discovered that imagination carries messages more clearly than any spoken word. You who seek to master the power of pure thought, understand this wisdom. Every word must first be perfectly formed in the silence of imagination before it can manifest in the world of sound and form." Practice this sacred art as Tyler did. Sit in perfect silence and shape your thoughts with crystal clarity. See your unspoken words taking form. Know their power to move reality. Trust in the voice that needs no sound. Hold your mental speech until the physical world reflects its message. Like the wise silence keeper, you will discover that imagination speaks louder than any voice could call. For what you can maintain with perfect clarity and consciousness must eventually manifest in physical form. And so Tyler Martinez continued his sacred practice each silent day, demonstrating imagination's power to communicate ultimate truth through the perfect quiet of pure thought. Chapter 38, The Fire Tender's Spark. In the sacred mountain temples of ancient Persia, where eternal flames burned as bridges between worlds, there served a remarkable fire keeper named Nicole Lopez. While other tenders fought constantly against dying embers, Nicole had discovered that physical flames were but reflections of the eternal fire of imagination. In the temple's innermost sanctuary, where the sacred flame had burned unbroken for 1,000 years, Nicole would kneel before coals that seemed to dance between life and death. There, as embers dimmed to mere whispers of their former glory, she would close her eyes and kindle first the immortal flame within her mind. "Fire is not held in wood or coal," she would whisper to apprentice tenders. "These physical flames are but shadows cast by the eternal blaze that burns forever in consciousness. When you master the fire within, the outer flames must follow your command." Through countless vigils, Nicole had noticed something extraordinary. When she maintained unwavering visions of radiant flames, seeing every detail of their perfect dance while physical embers grew weak, the dying coals would mysteriously strengthen, drawing sustenance from her mental fire. A wandering sage, watching Nicole resurrect nearly dead embers without adding fuel, clutched his walking staff in wonder. "The flames grow stronger by your presence alone," he exclaimed. "It's as if they feed on your very thoughts." Nicole smiled, warming her hands above the strengthening blaze. "I learned this truth during the Night of 9 Winds, when fierce storms threatened every sacred fire in the temple. Instead of frantically feeding fuel, I sat perfectly still and held the image of eternal flame until the physical fires stabilized, drawing strength from my unwavering vision." You who seek to tend life's sacred flames understand this wisdom. Every fire must first be kindled in the hearth of imagination. Physical flames follow mental radiance. Practice this sacred art as Nicole did. Sit before a candle and envision perfect eternal flame within your mind. See its undying light. Know its self-sustaining power. Trust in the fire keeper within. Hold this vision until temporary flames transform into eternal burning. Like the wise fire tender, you will discover that imagination is the eternal spark that no wind can extinguish. For what you can maintain with perfect clarity and consciousness must eventually manifest in physical form. And so Nicole Lopez continued her sacred practice each evening vigil, becoming a demonstration of imagination's power to sustain eternal flames through the perfect focus of pure thought, one visualized spark at a time. Chapter 39, The Water-Bearer's Well. In the scorching deserts of ancient Arabia, where mirages danced on endless horizons, there lived a remarkable water-bearer named David Foster. While other carriers mapped their routes between known wells, David had discovered that the sweetest springs first bubbled up in the oasis of imagination. Through sun-bleached canyons where no water had flowed in living memory, David would walk with his empty vessels, calm certainty in his steps. While others saw only burning sand and bitter rock, he had learned to perceive the hidden waters that whispered beneath the surface, waiting to be called forth by perfect vision. "Every drop that quenches thirst," he would tell thirsty travelers, "first forms in the wellspring of pure thought." The desert is only as barren as our imagination allows it to be. Through countless journeys, David had noticed something extraordinary. When he maintained unwavering visions of abundant springs, seeing every detail of cool, clear water while surrounded by endless sand, mysterious sources would reveal themselves in the most unlikely places. A nomad chieftain watching David tap his staff against seemingly random rocks to release hidden streams fell to his knees in wonder. "You find water where even the oldest maps show none," he exclaimed. "It's as if the desert itself reshapes to match your inner knowing." David smiled, sharing precious sips from his water skin. "I learned this truth during the season of 7 moons, when drought turned even known wells to dust. Instead of despairing, I began seeing perfect springs in my mind until the very earth parted to reveal them." You who seek to manifest abundance in life's deserts understand this wisdom. Every well must first be discovered in the landscapes of imagination. Physical waters follow mental springs. Practice this sacred art as David did. Sit in stillness and envision perfect, abundant waters flowing within your mind. See their crystal clarity, know their endless supply, trust in the water finder within. Hold this vision until barren places transform into overflow. Like the wise water bearer, you will discover that imagination is the eternal spring that no drought can empty. For what you can maintain with perfect clarity and consciousness must eventually manifest in physical form. And so David Foster continued his sacred journeys, each desert crossing becoming a demonstration of imagination's power to create abundant springs in the midst of seeming emptiness, one visualized drop at a time. Chapter 40, The Bridge Builder's Span. In the towering mountains of ancient Tibet, where impossibly deep chasms separated sacred temples from the world below, there lived a remarkable bridge engineer named Amanda Garcia. While other builders focused on physical materials and mathematical calculations, Amanda had discovered that every successful span must first be built in the architecture of pure thought. At the edge of the Whispering Gorge, where no bridge had ever survived the fierce winds that howled between peaks, Amanda would sit in perfect stillness each dawn. While others saw only unconquerable space, she had learned to construct invisible bridges of imagination that would later guide her hands in physical creation. "The strongest supports," she would tell her apprentices, "are the ones we cannot see. Before stone and timber can hold, the bridge must exist complete and unshakable in our mind's eye." Through countless projects, Amanda had noticed something extraordinary. When she maintained unwavering visions of completed crossings, seeing every detail of the finished bridge while facing empty chasms, mysterious forces seemed to guide her workers' hands, helping them create exactly what she had imagined. A visiting mystic, observing her team construct a seemingly impossible span without a single measurement tool, touched his forehead in reverence. "They build as if reading from perfect plans," he exclaimed. "It's as if the bridge already exists and they merely reveal it." Amanda smiled, running her hand along a freshly carved support beam. I learned this truth during the winter of falling stars, when darkness prevented us from seeing our own hands. Instead of stopping work, I discovered we could build more accurately by following the flawless blueprint in our shared imagination. You who seek to bridge life's great divides understand this wisdom. Every connection must first be completed in the architecture of pure thought before it can manifest in physical form. Practice this sacred art as Amanda did. Sit before any gap that needs bridging and construct the perfect span within your mind. See its completed form. Know its unshakable strength. Trust in the builder within. Hold this vision until empty space transforms into solid crossing. Like the wise bridge builder, you will discover that imagination is the master architect that no chasm can defeat. For what you can maintain with perfect clarity and consciousness must eventually manifest in physical form. And so Amanda Garcia continued her sacred work, each impossible span becoming a demonstration of imagination's power to create connections through the perfect blueprint of pure thought, one visualized bridge at a time. Act 5, The Great Convergence, Hidden Teachings Across Civilizations. Chapter 41, The Egyptian Scribe's Hieroglyph. In the shadow of ancient pyramids, where sacred symbols held secrets deeper than desert sands, there served a remarkable temple scribe named Michael Sullivan. While other scribes merely copied the sacred hieroglyphs, Michael had discovered that each symbol was actually a key to unlocking imagination's creative power. In the quiet hours before dawn, when the temple walls seemed to whisper their mysteries, Michael would trace these ancient characters with reverent care. Where others saw only decorative art, he had learned to recognize precise instructions for manifesting reality through focused thought. The ibis is not merely a bird, he would murmur to confused initiates, but a template for elevating consciousness. The ankh is not simply life, but the exact mental posture required to generate it. Through countless nights of study, Michael had noticed something extraordinary. When he held the exact mental state depicted by each hieroglyph, embodying its essence rather than just drawing its form, mysterious transformations would occur in his daily life, matching the symbol's true meaning. A visiting high priest, watching Michael demonstrate how a single sacred symbol could alter temple atmosphere, clutched his ceremonial staff in revelation. "You're not writing these signs," he whispered. "You're activating them." Michael smiled, his reed pen dancing across papyrus. "I learned this truth during the month of hidden moons, when I discovered that the ancient temple cats would respond to certain hieroglyphs, not by seeing them, but by sensing how I held their patterns in my mind. You who seek to unlock life's sacred codes, understand this wisdom. Every symbol is a precise instruction for shaping reality through imagination's art. The ancients left us not mere decorations, but exact formulas for manifestation. Practice this sacred art as Michael did. Choose any symbol that calls to you. Rather than simply observing its form, allow your mind to become the exact shape and quality it represents. Hold this mental posture until you feel the symbol's essence activating within your consciousness. Like the wise scribe, you will discover that sacred symbols are keys that unlock imagination's creative force. For what you can maintain with perfect clarity and consciousness must eventually manifest in physical form. And so Michael Sullivan continued his sacred work, each hieroglyph becoming a demonstration of imagination's power to translate ancient wisdom into living reality, one symbol at a time. Chapter 42, The Babylonian Astronomer's Chart. In the ziggurats of ancient Babylon, where clay tablets held celestial mysteries older than memory, there lived a remarkable astronomer named Christopher Torres. While others charted stars to predict earthly events, Christopher had discovered that the astronomical records contained something far more precious: precise instructions for manifesting reality through controlled imagination. In his tower observatory, scattered with cuneiform tablets, Christopher would trace the curious additional marks previous astronomers had dismissed as calculation errors. Where others saw only astronomical data, he had learned to recognize a sophisticated code teaching the art of reality creation. "These aren't just star positions," he would whisper to his apprentice while pointing to seemingly random dots between constellation markers. "They're exact diagrams showing how thoughts move through consciousness before manifesting in the physical world." Through countless nights of observation, Christopher had noticed something extraordinary. When he held his mind in the precise patterns shown by these hidden marks while observing certain stars, mysterious forces would align to manifest whatever he visualized with that specific stellar configuration. A visiting temple mathematician watching Christopher demonstrate how different star alignments required different mental postures dropped his counting stones in astonishment. The ancients weren't just tracking celestial bodies, he gasped. They were recording the exact science of manifestation. Christopher smiled, brushing dust from a particularly revealing tablet. "I learned this truth during the Great Conjunction, when I discovered that the strange symbols between Perseus and Andromeda weren't astronomical errors, but precise instructions for focusing consciousness to create desired outcomes. You who seek to master manifestation's sacred science understand this wisdom. The stars above are not mere lights, but eternal teachers showing exactly how thoughts must be arranged to reshape reality's fabric. Practice this sacred art as Christopher did. Gaze upward and allow your mind to adopt the exact pattern of any constellation that calls to you. Rather than just seeing the stars, become the perfect mental arrangement they reveal. Hold this precise configuration until you feel reality's threads beginning to shift. Like the wise astronomer, you will discover that the heavens contain hidden keys to unlocking imagination's creative power. For what you can maintain with perfect stellar clarity and consciousness must eventually manifest in physical form." And so Christopher Torres continued his sacred work, each astronomical observation becoming a demonstration of imagination's power to translate celestial wisdom into earthly reality, one starlit pattern at a time. Chapter 43, The Greek Philosopher's Academy. In the marble halls of ancient Athens, where wisdom echoed through columned corridors, there taught a remarkable philosophy instructor named Jessica Anderson. While other teachers debated abstract forms, Jessica discovered that Plato's ideal forms were actually precise instructions for manifesting reality through focused imagination. In her private garden classroom, where honeysuckle perfumed the air and olive trees cast dancing shadows, Jessica would guide students beyond mere intellectual understanding. Where others saw philosophical concepts, she had learned to recognize exact templates for reshaping the material world through concentrated thought. The perfect chair that Plato speaks of, she would explain while students reclined on stone benches, is not merely an abstract concept, but the exact mental image we must hold before any physical chair can manifest in its highest form. Through countless teaching cycles, Jessica had noticed something extraordinary. When students held the pure mental form of anything they wished to create, seeing its perfect essence rather than its shadowy reflection, mysterious forces would align to manifest that very perfection in physical reality. A visiting sophist, observing her students manifesting increasingly perfect creations through focused imagination, dropped his scrolls in revelation. "Philosophy isn't just theory," he whispered. "It's a practical manual for creation." Jessica smiled, touching a marble column that seemed to radiate perfection. "I learned this truth during the festival of Dionysus, when I discovered that by holding the perfect mental form of harmony, my students could bring previously impossible order to chaos. You who seek to master reality's deeper mysteries understand this wisdom. Every physical thing must first exist in its perfect form within imagination before it can manifest in its highest expression in the material world." Practice this sacred art as Jessica did. Choose any object before you. Rather than seeing its current form, hold in your mind its absolute perfect essence, its ideal form, free from all imperfection. Maintain this pure vision until physical reality begins shifting to match the perfection you hold in consciousness. Like the wise philosopher, you will discover that Plato's forms are not mere concepts, but exact instructions for unleashing imagination's creative power. For what you can maintain in perfect ideal form within consciousness must eventually manifest in physical reality. And so Jessica Anderson continued her sacred work, each philosophical lesson becoming a practical demonstration of imagination's power to translate perfect forms into physical manifestation, one ideal vision at a time. Chapter 44, The Roman Engineer's Aqueduct. In the rolling hills outside ancient Rome, where massive stone arches stretched across valleys like giant fingers reaching for the heavens, there worked a remarkable engineer named Matthew Phillips. While other builders focused on physical measurements and mathematical calculations, Matthew had discovered a profound secret. The great aqueducts were actually brought into being through precise exercises of imagination. In his humble workshop overlooking the Tiber River, Matthew would sit for hours before touching a single stone, holding perfect mental images of completed structures. Where others saw only technical challenges, he had learned to recognize that physical construction was merely the final step in a process that began in consciousness. The aqueduct exists first in pure thought, he would explain to puzzled apprentices while pointing to empty air. We aren't so much building it as allowing what already exists in mind to emerge into stone. Through countless projects, Matthew had noticed something extraordinary. When he maintained an unwavering mental image of the finished structure, experiencing it as already complete rather than something to be built, mysterious forces would align to manifest that very vision with uncanny precision. A visiting architect, watching Matthew's workers effortlessly placing massive stones exactly where his mental blueprint had placed them, dropped his measuring rod in astonishment. "The structure is guiding its own creation," he exclaimed. Matthew smiled, running his hand along a perfectly fitted arch. "I learned this truth during a cave meditation, when I realized our greatest engineering achievement isn't moving stones. It's holding the pure vision that draws the stones into their perfect places. You who seek to master matter's mysterious nature, understand this wisdom. Physical reality is but the final expression of what must first be flawlessly conceived and maintained in imagination's sacred workshop. Practice this sacred art as Matthew did. Before beginning any project, first build it completely in your mind. Experience every detail as already perfectly manifest. Hold this completed vision with such clarity that physical creation becomes merely a process of allowing what exists in consciousness to emerge into form. Like the wise engineer, you will discover that all physical structures are first built in imagination's invisible workshop, for what you can maintain with perfect architectural clarity and consciousness must eventually manifest in physical form. And so Matthew Phillips continued his sacred work, each magnificent aqueduct becoming a demonstration of imagination's power to translate pure mental blueprints into towering physical reality, one visioned stone at a time. Chapter 45, The Celtic Druids' Grove. In the mist-shrouded forests of ancient Ireland, where sacred groves held secrets older than stone circles, there lived a remarkable druid named Ashley Martinez. While others performed nature ceremonies for the changing seasons, Ashley had discovered that the ancient rituals were actually sophisticated techniques for programming the deep mind through natural imagery. In her sacred oak grove, where moonlight filtered through ancient branches and moss-covered stones whispered forgotten wisdom, Ashley would guide initiates beyond mere ritual motions. Where others saw only religious ceremonies, she had learned to recognize precise patterns for embedding transformative visions into consciousness. "The spiral path we walk among the trees," she would explain, while trailing her fingers across fern fronds, "isn't just honoring nature's cycles. It's teaching our deepest mind how thoughts must move to manifest in the physical world." Through countless seasonal celebrations, Ashley had noticed something extraordinary. When participants aligned their inner vision with specific natural patterns, the unfurling of a fern, the spiral of a snail's shell, the branching of lightning, mysterious forces would activate to manifest those same patterns in their lives. A visiting bard, watching initiates move through the grove in trance-like states, dropped his harp in revelation. "The ceremonies aren't just worship," he whispered. "They're training the eye of the soul." Ashley smiled, touching the spiral carved into an ancient stone. "I learned this truth during the midwinter vigil, when I saw that every natural form reveals the exact way consciousness must flow to create lasting change. You who seek to master nature's deeper mysteries understand this wisdom. The patterns of creation are not mere physical forms, but living teachings showing exactly how imagination must move to reshape reality. Practice this sacred art as Ashley did. Find a quiet place in nature, choose any natural pattern that calls to you, a leaf's veins, a flower's petals, a stream's flow. Allow your consciousness to adopt that exact same pattern until you feel your thoughts moving in perfect harmony with nature's creative force. Like the wise druid, you will discover that nature's forms are not mere shapes, but exact instructions for unleashing imagination's creative power. For what you can maintain in perfect natural harmony within consciousness must eventually manifest in physical form. And so Ashley Martinez continued her sacred work, each grove ceremony becoming a demonstration of imagination's power to translate nature's patterns into manifest reality, one sacred spiral at a time. Chapter 46, The Indian Sage's Meditation. In the sacred caves of ancient India, where silence spoke louder than words and shadows danced with enlightenment, there lived a remarkable meditation teacher named Joshua Garcia. While other masters taught rigid techniques, Joshua had discovered that all meditation practices, whether from east or west, were actually different paths to the same transformative power of directed imagination. In his cave sanctuary, where incense spiraled through shafts of dawn light and crystal formations caught rainbow fragments, Joshua would guide seekers beyond the surface of their practices. Where others saw opposing traditions, he had learned to recognize the universal language of conscious creation hidden within every approach. The flame we watch in Buddha's practice, he would explain while seated in the lotus position, is no different from the creative fire Egyptian priests ignited in their imagination. Only the outer form changes. The inner power remains the same. Through countless meditation cycles, Joshua had noticed something extraordinary. When practitioners moved beyond the specific technique to grasp the universal principle that focused imagination was the true agent of transformation, mysterious forces would activate regardless of the tradition being followed. A wandering yogi, observing Joshua's students achieving profound results through various approaches, dropped his prayer beads in revelation. "The techniques are just different doors," he whispered, "all opening into the same sacred chamber." Joshua smiled, touching the smooth cave wall that had witnessed thousands of transformations. "I learned this truth during a 3-day meditation, when I saw that whether one visualizes Hindu deities or Christian angels, the power lies not in the form, but in consciousness itself. You who seek to master meditation's deeper mysteries understand this wisdom. The outer method matters far less than the inner recognition that imagination, properly directed, is the universal force of transformation. Practice this sacred art as Joshua did. Choose any meditation technique that calls to you. Rather than becoming attached to its specific form, recognize it as one of many bridges to the same destination, the awakening of imagination's creative power. Allow the technique to dissolve until only pure aware creation remains. Like the wise teacher, you will discover that all authentic practices lead to the same truth, that focused imagination transcends all traditions and techniques. For what you can maintain in pure conscious awareness must eventually manifest in physical form. And so Joshua Garcia continued his sacred work, each meditation session becoming a demonstration of imagination's universal power to transform reality, one conscious breath at a time. Chapter 47, The Chinese Master's Garden. In the misty mountains of ancient China, where bamboo forests whispered secrets of harmony to those who knew how to listen, there lived a remarkable garden designer named Stephanie Lopez. While others created gardens purely for beauty, Stephanie had discovered that the precise arrangement of natural elements was actually a sophisticated system for maintaining consistent creative imagery in consciousness. In her private meditation garden, where carefully placed stones guided Qi like stepping stones across a stream, Stephanie would teach students that each plant, rock, and water feature served as an anchor for specific mental patterns. Where others saw decorative elements, she recognized a complete system for stabilizing transformative thoughts. "See how the white pine bends but never breaks," she would say, touching its flexible branches. "This teaches us that mental images must remain both strong and adaptable to manifest properly." Through countless seasons tending her living classroom, Stephanie had noticed something extraordinary. When visitors aligned their inner vision with the balanced elements before them, the interplay of stone and water, growth and rest, shadow and light, their lives would mysteriously begin reflecting that same perfect equilibrium. A wandering poet, observing how the garden seemed to rearrange itself to maintain harmony, dropped his writing brush in amazement. "The elements are dancing with our thoughts," he exclaimed. Stephanie smiled, adjusting a perfectly positioned rock. "I learned this truth during a midnight meditation, when I realized these gardens aren't meant to be viewed. They're meant to be internalized as living patterns for sustained imagination. You who seek to master balanced manifestation understand this wisdom. Physical harmony is but the outer reflection of precisely maintained mental imagery, anchored through natural elements that mirror consciousness itself. Practice this sacred art as Stephanie did. Find a space where natural elements exist in balance. Allow each feature to teach you its lesson: the rock's stability, the water's flow, the leaf's adaptability. Let these patterns become templates for holding your creative visions with perfect equilibrium. Like the wise garden master, you will discover that natural harmony provides the exact blueprint for maintaining transformative mental images. For what you can hold in perfect balance within consciousness must eventually manifest in physical form. And so Stephanie Lopez continued her sacred work, each garden becoming a living demonstration of imagination's power to translate balanced vision into manifest reality, one mindfully placed element at a time. Chapter 48, The Mayan Priest Calendar. In the stepped pyramids of ancient Yucatan, where stone markers traced the dance of celestial bodies and sacred numbers whispered the secrets of time itself, there lived a remarkable calendar keeper named Daniel Walker. While others used the sacred counts merely to track days and seasons, Daniel had discovered that the intricate cycles were actually precise templates for imagining future events into manifestation. In his torchlit chamber atop the highest temple, where light and shadow played across carved glyphs marking time's eternal spiral, Daniel would study the intersecting cycles of the Tzolk'in and Hob calendars. Where others saw only dates and predictions, he recognized an elaborate system for programming the deep mind to shape coming events. Each sacred number sequence, he would explain while tracing the carved spirals, isn't just marking time's passage. It's showing us exactly how long to hold specific visions for them to manifest in the proper moment. Through countless cycles of Venus and countless rounds of the sacred calendar, Daniel had noticed something extraordinary. When he aligned his inner visions with specific numerical patterns, 13 heavens, 9 underworlds, 20 sacred day signs, mysterious forces would activate to manifest those visions at precisely the right time. A visiting trader, watching Daniel configure cocoa beans into sacred counts while entering deep trance states, dropped his jade offerings in revelation. "The calendar isn't predicting the future," he gasped. "It's teaching us how to create it." Daniel smiled, touching the worn edge of his counting board. "I learned this truth during a 9-day fast, when I saw that every sacred cycle reveals the exact duration needed for imagination to crystallize into physical form. You who seek to master time's deeper mysteries understand this wisdom. The sacred counts are not mere measurements. but precise instructions showing exactly how long consciousness must maintain specific visions to reshape coming events. Practice this sacred art as Daniel did. Choose any cycle in nature, the moon's phases, the season's turn, even your own breath. Allow your creative visions to flow in perfect harmony with that rhythm, maintaining each image for its proper duration until, like a ripening fruit, it naturally manifests in physical form. Like the wise calendar keeper, you will discover that time's cycles are not mere measurements, but exact instructions for sustaining imagination's creative power. For what you can maintain in perfect temporal harmony within consciousness must eventually manifest in physical form. And so Daniel Walker continued his sacred work, each calendar calculation becoming a demonstration of imagination's power to translate temporal patterns into manifest reality, one sacred cycle at a time. Chapter 49, The Hebrew Mystic's Vision. In the hidden caves near the Dead Sea, where ancient scrolls held secrets deeper than their written words, there lived a remarkable scroll interpreter named Sarah Chen. While others read the sacred texts literally, Sarah had discovered that the prophetic visions they contained were actually systematic teachings about using imagination to connect with divine creative power. In her lamp-lit study chamber, where weathered parchments whispered wisdom across centuries, Sarah would unroll the ancient scrolls with trembling fingers. Where others saw only stories of prophets and visions, she recognized precise instructions for awakening the creative force within human consciousness. The burning bush that was not consumed, she would explain, while carefully unfurling a scroll, teaches us that divine imagination burns eternally bright without depleting its source. Through countless nights studying the sacred texts, Sarah had noticed something extraordinary. When readers moved beyond the surface narrative to grasp the deeper pattern, that each vision described a specific way of using imagination, mysterious transformations would begin in their own lives. A visiting scholar watching Sarah trace Hebrew letters while explaining their hidden meanings dropped his quill in amazement. "These aren't just historical accounts," he whispered. "They're training manuals for the human mind." Sarah smiled, touching the well-worn edge of a parchment. "I learned this truth during a 7-day contemplation, when I saw that every prophetic vision provides exact instructions for awakening our own creative power. You who seek to master these ancient mysteries, understand this wisdom. The sacred texts are not mere stories, but precise guides showing how to align your imagination with the divine creative force that shapes reality itself. Practice this sacred art as Sarah did. Choose any vision from the ancient texts. Rather than reading it as history, see it as a template for your own conscious creation. Allow each symbolic element to teach you its secret method for awakening imagination's transformative power. Like the wise interpreter, you will discover that all sacred visions contain practical instructions for manifesting through disciplined imagination. For what you can maintain in pure conscious alignment with divine creative force must eventually manifest in physical form. And so Sarah Chen continued her sacred work, each scroll interpretation becoming a demonstration of imagination's power to translate divine patterns into earthly reality, one vision at a time. Chapter 50, The Universal Master's Secret. In the sacred valley where all wisdom paths converge, Hidden beneath the shifting sands of time, there existed a mysterious underground chamber known as the Hall of Universal Truth. Here dwelled its enigmatic keeper, Amanda Rodriguez, who alone understood why seekers from every tradition eventually found their way to her door. Unlike other guardians who preserved specific teachings, Amanda had discovered something remarkable. A golden thread of truth woven through every mystical tradition across history. In her circular chamber, whose walls were inscribed with symbols from every ancient culture, she would receive truth seekers with knowing eyes. Notice how each symbol, though different in form, points to the same center, she would say, gesturing to the chamber's spiraling walls. Where others saw conflicting teachings, she recognized infinite expressions of a single truth. That human imagination was the very force of divine creation itself. Through countless years watching seekers arrive from distant lands, Amanda had observed something extraordinary. Whether they came carrying scrolls from Alexandria, tablets from Babylon, or wisdom verses from the Far East, all their sacred teachings encoded the same essential secret in different forms. A wandering mystic studying the chamber's convergent patterns while seeking ultimate truth fell to his knees in revelation. "Every tradition is teaching the same thing," he whispered, "just through different symbols." Amanda smiled, touching the chamber's central pillar where all patterns merged. "I learned this truth during a 1,000-day vigil, when I saw that all paths lead to one revelation, that imagination is not separate from divine creative power, but is its very essence expressing through human consciousness. You who seek the ultimate mystery understand this wisdom. The countless teachings across time and culture are not different truths but varied expressions of the one truth, that your imagination is the divine creative force wearing the mask of individual consciousness." Practice this sacred art as Amanda did. Sit in perfect stillness and allow your consciousness to expand beyond all cultural forms and specific teachings. Feel the pure creative force that expresses through every tradition, yet transcends them all. Let your imagination merge with this universal power, knowing it is not separate from your own awareness. Like the wise keeper of universal truth, you will discover that all paths lead to this single revelation. For when you recognize imagination as the divine creative essence expressing through you, all teachings become one teaching, all practices become one practice, all truth becomes one truth. And so Amanda Rodriguez continued her sacred work, each seeker's awakening becoming another demonstration that human imagination and divine creative power were one and the same force, expressing through infinite forms yet remaining eternally, perfectly unified. Epilogue: The Eternal Chamber. In the deepest chamber beneath the ancient city of Alexandria, where the accumulated wisdom of humanity converged in mysterious patterns of light and shadow, there dwelled a remarkable truth-keeper named Jennifer Phillips. Unlike other guardians who preserved individual teachings, Jennifer had discovered why seekers who mastered all 50 chambers inevitably found their way to this final sanctum. In her circular sanctuary, where crystalline walls reflected infinite variations of the same divine light, Jennifer would receive those who had walked the complete path with eyes that held both sunset and sunrise. The chamber itself seemed to pulse with living awareness, as if the very stones had absorbed the power of countless awakening souls. "Notice how the light reveals different facets, yet springs from a single source," she would say. as seekers watched shadows dance across ancient symbols. Where others saw separate reflections, she recognized the one light expressing through countless mirrors of consciousness. Through ages of guiding souls through their final revelation, Jennifer had observed something extraordinary. Whether they had mastered the potter's vision or the astronomer's charts, the merchant's rule or the hermit's solitude, all paths led to the same stunning truth, that they themselves were the very creative power they had been seeking. A master who had studied for 30 years in distant temples, watching the chamber's infinite light play, suddenly dropped to his knees in joyous laughter. "We are not separate from the divine creative force," he exclaimed. "We are its very expression." Jennifer smiled, touching the chamber's central crystal where all light unified. "I learned this truth during the eternal moment when time dissolves, seeing that imagination is not a tool we use, but the very essence of what we are." You who have walked these 50 paths understand this final wisdom. All teachings were preparing you to recognize that your consciousness is not separate from divine creative power. It is that very power wearing the mask of individual awareness. Practice this ultimate realization. Sit in perfect stillness until the distinction between observer and observed dissolves. Feel yourself as the one creative force expressing through all forms and experiences. Let your imagination expand into its true nature as the infinite light playing through countless mirrors of manifestation. Like the wise keeper of final truth, you will discover that all practices were leading to this single recognition. For when you realize that imagination is not something you do, but what you are, all teachings fulfill their purpose in awakening you to your true creative nature. And so Jennifer Phillips continued her eternal work, each soul's final awakening becoming another expression of the one truth, that human imagination and divine creative power were never separate, but eternally, joyously, perfectly one. If you enjoyed this exclusive audiobook, I handpicked this next book which will change your life.